answered
Welcome to
wrong.
Bonehead Weekly. Who the hell are you people, and where's my pants? So today we've got Ben Helwig and Glenn. Glenn, what's your last name again?
Glenn Cochran. No, thanks, mate.
I know. I can see it down here. I'm just being an asshole. So, guys, we have been doing Bonehead Weekly Fun Size for Good Movie Monday now 2 years? More?
Too long.
Well, I know too long. I agree with that. I keep waiting for Scarefest to tell me, hey, you don't have to do a weekly review anymore, but they've yet to say it. I swear to God, I do keep waiting for that conversation. But how long have we been doing it? It's over 2 years.
Yeah, it's probably coming on 3 now. Have you been? I can't even remember if you've been with it from the beginning. I think you have.
Not
right from the start.
No, I don't think we were from the beginning because you had the other host for a while.
Had Keith. Yeah, I reckon maybe
what?
You came in.
There was somebody before Ben.
Yeah, I'm a ringer. I'm a Johnny come lately.
Yeah, all I heard was come.
Yeah, it's a Johnny come everywhere.
Yeah. Sorry if we actually don't ever get the chance to actually talk like this, so it'll probably be 15 or 20 minutes of really inappropriate jokes making fun of one another before we actually talk about anything remotely important, because like I said, we've been trying. Also, this is the time for you, Ben and Glenn, and it's just fun that it rhymes, to give us shit, because we have been trying to get this interview done for how long? 1.5 years?
I don't know. Yeah,
we've been waiting. We've been sitting in that waiting room a while.
Yeah, because you also got to realize, Joe, this is the first time Ben's actually been on the show.
I know. Glenn,
I feel like we're Matt Damon we always get bumped at the end of the show and never make it onto the
on Jimmy Kimmel. Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel.
That's probably for the best.
It's okay, but guys, I was going to re-listen to Glenn's episode to make sure I didn't re-ask questions, and I realized I didn't remember a damn question in it. And I'm assuming some of our audience probably won't remember any of it in it. So I'm not going to try to do what I wanted to do was start with the conversation and see where it goes from there. But before we get started, how can you defend Halloween Ends?
You knew this was how it was going to start.
That's what
Absolutely.
I was worried when they told us there was no plan for this episode. I should have known.
Yeah,
I had a plan the whole time. I had a plan.
I have questions that I'm waiting for James to get on for, but I knew, so I was like, Joe's just going to start with Halloween Ends, so I'm just going to let it roll.
So here's the thing: you and I are both Halloween 3 fans, right? And I think Tommy Lee Wallace is an unappreciated director who gave us, and Fright Night Part 2 is another really good sequel that I think people know more about it now than they did 10 years ago.
And he gave us
I prefer Part 2.
And he gave us a better
really?
It Part 2 as well.
But I did not know you preferred Part 2 over Part 1. Now, I can't go that far, but I think Part 2 is so different in so many ways, from the casting, the characterization. I just love Part 2. And it's an unappreciated film, but I didn't know you preferred it over the original Friday Night, because
I prefer a lot of number 2s over number 1.
Yeah,
so
he's a big sequel fan.
Yes,
except he hates The Dark Knight, which I still can't get over.
Yeah, Child's Play too. So maybe
now you're into number 3s, Glenn, which is a piss and a shit and a wank in a tree, right?
Yeah, not necessarily in that order, but yeah.
And so here's the thing I want to say about Halloween Ends. The first part of it was just me being an asshole, but this is true. So I give him props for trying something new. I really do. I just don't think it works.
By the way, should I take my headphones out since I haven't seen it yet?
I don't know that it's going to give anything away.
I'm not going to spoil it.
Okay.
But I mean, I'm not even going to defend it. Like, he's just wrong. Like,
you're in the. It was so much better than Halloween Kills. No,
it is better than Halloween Kills. But I took
Halloween Kills is unwatchable.
Ben, I took a shit in the floor and it was better than Halloween Kills.
I went so far as to say on our show that it's probably in my mind the best sequel of all the Halloweens.
I know you have said it, and then you went off on a guy that we're both kind of mutual friends with on Facebook, and that's when I posted on it. It's like, I'm just going to, you guys go ahead and turn off the light as you're going back and forth arguing comments. Feel free just to, when you leave the room, to turn the light off. I'm leaving. So, and he listens to the show, Jake Gobold. So hi, Jake. But I just, that's, so my problem is that, first of all, I like the Halloween, the 2018, and that should have been it. There really doesn't need to be 2 more sequels after that, because that story is fairly self-contained right there. I
didn't care for it.
So I like it. I like that it's just, fuck it. Get rid of all the other movies and let's deal with this crazy bitch living in the woods who's suffered all this trauma. I like a lot of that. And I think it works. But I don't need the kills and the ends, and that's just, I mean, they're just for money.
But you know what? What I really, I mean, there's a lot of things I hate.
No, I'm really not trying to pick on you. I really am not.
No, I know. Well, no, but what I one, there's many things, but Jamie Lee Curtis was the one that had the idea to revive it for H2O. Like, she was the one. Let's come back and do this again to celebrate the anniversary, and she wanted to disregard those sequels that came in between, right? Mm-hmm. And now she's come back for 40. What's that? The one she wasn't in yet?
The one she went in. I pretend those didn't happen.
She's come back for 40, and she wants to now discredit the one she was in. It's like, it's just, she's responsible for fucking up all the timelines.
Yeah, that kind of stuff. What I like about it is I have absolutely no skin in the Halloween game. Like, I am not a massive Halloween fan by any stretch of the words. Like, I like the original. I like Halloween 3, which is not a Halloween, like a Halloween film. It's much better. I thought that as a anthology type series, it would have been great.
I totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. John had the right idea. It just didn't work.
Yeah. Because they did Halloween 2. If they hadn't have done Halloween 2, and Halloween 2 would have been Season of the Witch, then it would have just been straight off the bat that Michael Myers isn't a recurring character. He's just the first killer. And there's a different killer in every episode, in every iteration of the film. No mess, no fuss. But because Halloween 2 came out, then everyone wanted Michael Myers, which is what I don't understand. Like, I honestly don't like slashers where the villains, I don't like any of them where the villains are somehow supernaturally powerful and unstoppable. I always think that's just a bit ridiculous. Like, I think it's much more scary when they're grounded in some kind of reality. And
the only one, and I agree with Ben 100%. That's one of the reasons why I can't get into the slasher films that much. The only instance where I actually like it, and I like the reasons they keep bringing him back, is Child's Play. I just love the fact that the way they keep resurrecting Chucky. I just love that.
But that's grounded in the fantasy from the beginning, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Same thing with Nightmare on Elm Street. Just a little
kid. Like, I mean, that's the whole premise of Halloween, is that Michael Myers is a little kid who kills his family and spends the rest of his life in a mental hospital, and then somehow magically grows up into a super strong, unkillable force. I thought that's the kind of the smartest thing about Halloween Ends, is they add that supernatural thing and try and make it about, they turn Haddonfield into Derry, and he's just embodied by the spirit of evil. Plus the fact that, I mean, he is, like, what would he be, like 70 years old now?
Something like that. Yeah.
Well, yes.
And it's not like he heads to the gym every week. Like, his muscle mass would naturally be reduced.
So when be an old man. So when he's getting up, I like that part. The part I can't stand is, there's just a drain pipe, and I'm sorry. And you can't.
Ben loves that. Ben loves that.
Why?
I think I almost got spoiled, so the headphones went out.
Why? All right. Well, we'll stop with Halloween Ends because James Thomas is here, and we all love James Thomas. Actually, I don't care for James Thomas. He's still connecting to audio.
He's just crawled out of his drain pipe.
Yeah, he just crawled out of the drain pipe, and he got his hair cut. How are you, James?
I got them all cut, Joe. It costs a little bit extra, but I'm worth it.
I've only ever got mole cuts back when I had hair. In fact, maybe that's the reason I don't have it anymore.
No, we all do the same thing. I actually have a coupon up here for the generic place. I'm all excited about getting a haircut in the next couple of weeks. So, Chad, you said you had questions, but you had to wait until James got here.
So my first question is actually to you and James. not these two fuckers.
Listen.
Yeah, fuck.
Listen.
Who would care
So-
about talking to the actual guests?
You know, when we record episodes, you know, we don't talk to each other ahead of time, right? We pick our movies and, you know, things happen.
We don't even talk to each other when we record, actually. What most people don't know is we don't acknowledge each other.
We really barely are in the same room ever.
Right. Ever. So if I pick one of your picks, what do you say to me?
Fuck you, and I hope you damn die.
Yep. James, what do you say?
Well, I don't normally say anything, but what you don't know is that every time you pick one of my movies, I make an anonymous tip using your address about a terrorist organization. You don't know that yet. But
Bent
one
on
day,
ruling the world. Cobra!
Yeah,
So
right.
with your answers, have we ever said to one another, oh, you Bigfooted my pick?
No.
Okay. Ben,
No, I prefer
what the fuck?
Sasquatch. I prefer Sasquatch, my pick. That's what I'm going to go with from now on.
It's a constant. It's just a constant. Like I have very limited time, and most of the time I don't see your episodes ahead of time, really, until Glenn tells me on the day, and I'm like, ah, fuck, and I have to scramble last minute to try and find something else to talk about.
Yeah,
But
so
that's not to say he hasn't got your link ahead of time where he could actually watch it.
Yeah,
But yeah, and then one time Ben went off on us and said, "Oh, Chad Bigfooted my pick." What did that mean?
I think he's getting at what does Bigfooted mean, mate?
Yeah. It means that you took, because I always end up for some reason that review always ends up after your segment on the show. So I was like, I feel like we've both come to the party wearing the same dress.
What does it have to do with Bigfoot?
Is that an Australia? Is that an Aussie term?
I got Bigfoot.
That's not one I've heard. Yeah,
Okay.
I've never heard it.
It's because you've stood on my foot with your bigger foot.
In all fairness,
It's a
Chad,
Benism.
I do have a 14. I do wear a size 14 foot. I
I
don't
was
know
gonna
what
say,
that is
Chad's
in
the only
Australian
person I've ever met that has a bigger foot than I do. And that's,
Yeah,
that's
but
pretty now
that's
mine is
actually-
wider. I have wide
They're
feet.
both 2 inches taller than me, or 1 to 2 inches taller than me, and they both have bigger feet than me. I don't know what that's.
I don't know
about.
I don't know how often you actually listen to the show, but the first hour, I'd say, of the show is just me whinging about stuff to Glenn. There's stuff that I could easily have found out about had I done any prep or planning or remembering of anything.
You
What
said
that
I
tells us-
Bigfooted your response probably about 7 months ago, and I have been
Yeah.
dying to bring it. And I refused to send it through Facebook Messenger. I'm like, no, they're going to be on the show, and I'm going to call him out on this because I have no idea what that meant.
This is
I'm-
Chad's Halloween ends.
And how disappointing is that answer?
All right, and speaking of bad choices, I'm going to go off camera because I don't want to see the fight that I'm getting ready to cause. So, excuse me. Joe and James,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ben hates Burt Reynolds.
What?
Now, in all fairness, we can actually say that's anti-American and that's not offensive to it. So it's fine. It's fine. You cannot be American and hate Burt
Hang on.
Reynolds.
Can I just say though, like you're talking to the guy that was responsible for creating a Burt Reynolds box set.
I saw that on the Umbrella website, but there's an episode where he said he absolutely hated Burt Reynolds. He hated his comedies. I think you said you even hated him with Dom DeLuise, which is sacrilegious.
Now that once again, but you hated him, but not Dom DeLuise, right? Because I will get on a plane. Well, I can't afford a ticket. I will get on a boat. Well, I can't afford a boat ticket. I will slowly drift over and fight to defend Dom DeLuise.
And you'll know he's arrived because he'll be wearing a cape and saying dun dun dun.
Captain Chaos.
Captain Chaos.
So
Yeah, no, not a big fan.
So how do you not like Smokey and the Bandit?
I do. Well, look, I like Smokey. I do like Smokey and the Bandit. I'm
Dick
not-
turd.
not familiar with 2 and 3.
Well,
I
if
like,
you don't like Burt Reynolds, you'll love part 3.
I like
Well, he's in
Cannibal
it though.
Row.
He's got a delicious little cameo.
Well, yeah.
Oh my God, you said delicious.
I love number 3 of Smoking the Bandit.
Oh, Then do you know about the whole thing about whether it was shot with and without? I mean,
Smokey is the bandit.
Smokey is the bandit, and then there's that.
Have you seen the
shirt.
photo of Jackie Gleason in
Yeah.
the bandit gear? That's great.
Yeah,
I believe it. I believe it. I would love to see that cut.
But they've tracked down the writer, and he's like, "Nah, it's all bullshit." He went to I don't know where Jackie was, but he's in Jupiter, Florida, and he'd had a heart attack, and he went down there to write it, and he had a casino in his living room. If I find the interview, Glenn, I'll send it to you. It's
Awesome.
just, it's like this shit happened to you. I mean, even if they didn't pay you, this was a fantastic experience as a writer to hang out with Jackie.
I would
Gleason.
love there to be a number 3 alternative cut though.
Yeah, I would too. I mean,
Right
of
on the
course.
shelf next to the cursed director cut, and yeah.
Yeah.
And by the way, Glenn and Ben, I'll pay you $10 each if one of you all just slam Silence of the Hams right now.
How could you slam it?
Because it doesn't.
How?
It's not any good.
It's up there with
Oh.
Repossessed and
I was
Chicken
gonna
I
say,
do
Park.
like
Have you seen
Repossessed.
Chicken Park.
Loaded Weapon 1.
Oh, yeah.
God, yeah.
I
Yeah,
like
you can't.
scenes in Loaded Weapon 1.
So
Have you
Joe,
seen Chicken Park? Come on.
No, but there's a place my kids used to watch fireworks that they called Chicken Park because it was a park, and somebody had put up a 7-foot tall chicken statue in front of it. I've been to that place.
Oh.
You know what's better
And
than
Joe
Silence of the
visits the
Hams?
Chicken Ranch, so you know.
Yeah, Chicken Ranch.
Better than Silence of the Hams? Mafia.
No.
Jane Austen's Mafia. Thank you very much.
Oh,
Jane
yeah, I
Austen's
forgot. Shit, sorry. I forgot it was Jane Austen's Mafia.
I, by the way, owned all of those. I own Silence of the Ham still because I can't get it on DVD because America hates me. I've got it on VHS though, and I also had Mafia on VHS because for some reason they were 99-cent discounts.
Is
both
it
of them.
is it F. Murray Abrahams in that as Hannibal Lecter? Or which one is he Hannibal Lecter in?
Dom DeLuise is Hannibal Lecter in Silence of the
That's
Hams.
right. It might
I
be maybe
think
it's Loaded Weapon.
It's Loaded Weapon 1 where F. Murray
Yeah.
Abraham is.
Is it really?
Yeah.
I don't remember. My favorite scene in Loaded Weapon 1, we've talked about this on Bonehead, is the lieutenant or whatever, and he keeps saying, I've got this going on, I've got this going on. He goes, I've got this burning sensation. He goes, your damn foot's on fire. It shouldn't be funny. Cracks me
Hey,
up every single
Sarge,
time.
it's tingling. Good Earl. That means it's working.
Yes, it makes sense. And by the way, how come neither one of us can land? Here's a question I have for you, Ben. I mean, Glenn. Why can't we land Pat Proft?
He's not a plane.
Because he's difficult.
No shit.
I've approached him many times, and every time he's like, "Yeah, absolutely, let's set it up. Here's my email." But you email him, he'll never respond.
He just
I
flat
got-
out told me no more than once.
Well, yeah, he told me once no, but just keep at him. But he probably won't deliver. Like David Zucker's an easier get.
yeah, and David has never returned my messages, so congratulations.
He was a good interview, but
It was. I
yeah,
watched
just
it. I watched it.
keep at him. Keep at him.
No, but I think
I'm a
one
big
of us
fan of
should eventually be able to get fucking Pat Proft.
You
Sorry,
should.
that's just-
One of us should.
One of us
No.
should be able to do that.
I've given up on it, man. I've no interest. Like if they're going to be that way.
By the way,
Yeah, but
no
there's
offense,
go ahead.
but fuck Pat Proft. Now that we've talked about Loaded Weapon 1, I want to get Gene Quintano because not only did
Yeah.
he direct Loaded Weapon 1, he directed Why Me with Lambert and Christopher Lloyd, for God's sakes.
Oh, and he did King Solomon's Mines.
Oh, really?
And a classic. Also another movie I owned on VHS and needed to pick up the DVD, but
Yeah, good
I've-
stuff.
Guys, I've never seen Why Me. Now I've got to find a copy of it.
All right, I got another question while I'm sitting here. Does anybody want any bourbon?
Yes, can you
Oh,
drive it over?
Too
'Cause
much
I'm-
of that last night. Thank you very much. Or whiskey anyway.
Okay, so
Oh, that's not bourbon. You bastard.
Well, that's why I said whiskey anyway.
It's
You
probably that
dickhead.
Canadian whiskey.
Wherever it was Fireball, wherever that's from.
no idea.
Fireball technically is German. The
just-
original one was German.
James is a Fireball aficionado.
But the American stuff is not German because it doesn't meet the German quality, so we get the runoff effectively.
Well, I would have thought that the American stuff is American.
guys, it's the only alcohol that James will drink.
It's not the only one I'll drink.
Oh, it's
but it
the
is
only
the
one.
No.
Other than that what is that Klingon beer, blood wine, whatever the hell that nasty shit you had us drink.
That
one-
was Romulan
No,
ale, you
ale.
uncultured swine.
Sorry. God, that was awful.
Because it's cinnamon
Well,
flavored.
once
That's what I enjoy
sorry?
most about the Fireball. Is it because it's
What was
cinnamon
that?
flavored? Is
Yes.
that why it's the only alcohol you'll drink, Jane?
Oh, it's actually because it's a cure-all. It's medicinal.
Ah,
If you've got a sore throat, and you take enough of it, it turns out your throat doesn't feel any sore anymore. It's very
I don't know
medicinal.
why. I don't know why Trump wasn't pushing that during the start of the COVID thing.
To be honest, it would be the only thing he didn't push at one point, including putting lights up your rectum at one
No,
point.
I was going to say, I think at one point he
tried
said,
that.
"Oh,
that was fun.
but if you mix the Fireball with
It
that
wasn't
bleach,
because of the COVID.
it'll fix
Yeah,
it."
Well, once a month on the show, every month we have Melzy Begg on the desk, and she's from the Melbourne Horror Film Society, and we've made that our Fireball episode. So last night we recorded the latest episode, and we drank more than we normally drink, and it was a very, very lively episode. So much so that we forgot to plug her microphone in. So that was a whole episode.
God. I can only imagine the hangover you had.
Yeah, well, it's practically only just woken up. So
Oh, God.
So anyway, Chad, this was the part where you wanted to practice your throat singing, that monk thing that you do, where you really belt it
Mongolian?
out through your throat.
I am still getting over RSV. There is nothing my throat can do right now.
That's not true. I've seen your throat done a lot of shit.
I'm gonna go get a pickle. Mm.
Now, I actually, after we're done sucking pickles, I have a question. Ben, you do no research.
No.
Glenn, how many hours a week do you spend? Because I will give you a compliment and you'll just get it this one time. And I hate to do
And
it
then he
while we're
freezes.
recording. Am I froze?
You
No, you're
froze
not
me.
froze now.
Oh, you said
Okay.
I'm gonna give Ben a compliment, and then you froze.
Well,
So
that's
it sounded
because
like you
my
were just
comic
doing an
timing is
epic
impeccable.
pause.
It's impeccable.
Yeah, and I figured you were going to give Glenn a compliment, not me.
I am going to give. Well, I just want to fuck Ben. But back to Glenn. The thing is, how many
We'll be
hours do
there.
you spend? Because I actually think you beat us when it comes to knowledge.
Oh yeah,
No, I wouldn't say that.
I think you do.
dude, you do. I give you props on that. Yeah, you. Yeah,
Maybe about anywhere from, it depends on the episode, but maybe a minimum of 5 hours per week.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot.
Yeah.
Your kids are grown, right?
Yeah, but not left.
You know how I
yeah,
know
so-
you don't have a toddler?
Yeah, that's right. Got time. So yeah, maybe a minimum of 5 per week, but sometimes
Man.
more.
So
yeah. I wish I could dedicate that much time.
back to, the next question is curiosity, and I'm trying to think of a way to phrase it. While I'm trying to think of a way
Hide
to
your
phrase
cats.
it, no,
Why did you get Ben to come on the show? Why?
no. I actually think that you're hilarious. And you
That's
guys
why.
you guys play off each other very well, whereas Glenn is more serious. And because you do have a vast amount of knowledge, it works quite well between the two of you. So
Don't
that-
underestimate Ben's knowledge though, because that's
I
the thing, is
don't.
that he plucks that information just like that.
Dude,
whereas I'm quite
with
often-
a shelf like that, Ben has to have.
That's what I was gonna
Ben
tell-
Obviously,
That's what I was going to say, Chad, is that you can't just have that behind you. Like, is that the Night of the Demons 2 videotape?
Oh, yeah.
us? Yeah.
Yeah, None of the Demons and None of the Demons 2.
Nice.
And,
So-
but his whole house is like that.
which by the way, the fact that the Night of the Demons 2, that thing looks like a vampire makes no fucking sense, but it's a cool picture.
Yeah.
Real quick, just so I can get a sense of what your collection includes, Ben. How many Miles O'Keefe movies do you have?
that's a bit hard to answer.
If you prepped him, you'd have them all there.
Yeah, I'd pull them all out. I don't know.
James, do the joke. Do the
Because
joke.
how much O'Keefe do we need? We need Miles O'Keefe. I guess it doesn't work if you use kilometers.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Why didn't he go by kilometers, O'Keefe? He would have had more of an
It would
international.
be
It would
better.
definitely got more of an international draw. But you didn't. I'm curious, guys. Now, Glenn, I know you put the show together and I put our show together, but you put a lot more time into putting your show together than I do. Now, how often do you all listen to this shit? Do you listen to your
Well,
episodes?
How
Just
often do I listen?
yes. How
Chad's
often?
had some sort of stroke. I don't know if anybody else noticed.
Well, he's frozen.
No, I'm not. I'm not frozen.
Everybody else kept going, and I was like, Chad's stroked out. Somebody.
Why me? Why me is streaming on Tubi?
That's what.
Wait a
I
second.
thought he was still lost in Miles O'Keefe.
Can
I
we
was
wrap
saying,
this
Sue
fucker up
skipped
so I
a
can go
beat,
watch
and nobody
Flying?
else noticed.
So
To
I've
answer
said,
your question,
yes,
to answer your question, so I'll listen back to the show to edit it.
yeah.
But then before I was working from home, I'd give it a road test. I'd listen to it when it's dropped. I'd listen on the way to work and on the way home. Now I don't do that as much just because I'm at home already. Some days, if I've got some time, I'll put it on just to see how we sound. But usually I don't listen back other than edit.
I don't either.
Yeah, I used to just to see, okay, this is how I can improve. But yeah, I can't do it now. I haven't listened to an episode of ours in 2.5 years.
But I must admit, I go back and I listen to old episodes occasionally just to sort of, reminisce or to do a bit of research. Have we spoken about something? And I'm always surprised at how far back we can go and it still sounds good. Like, early days might have been a bit sketchy, but I think once we got Keith out of the picture, then things were really firing.
Well, I mean, that's the funny thing. Like, I used to joke at the start when I first started the show, and Glenn would always, we talked about this on a past show. I'm like, I don't listen to any show that I'm not on. Why would I listen to something that I'm not on? The real truth is that I refuse to listen to anything that I'm actually on because I hate myself, and I would quit the show. I'd just be like, no, I can't inflict this on the public anymore. On the two people that listen, could not inflict it upon.
One of those is Chad,
apparently.
I agree with that though, because it's what I always think about, because internally, for whatever reason, the way my voice echoes in my own, I think I sound like Cary Grant, and then I hear myself back, and I'm like, "Who is this guy that crawled out of the woodwork, and why don't we lock him down?"
I listened to you. I would have thought, James.
I think he just called you a bastard.
I mean, I've been called worse, but I do have document that my parents were indeed married.
There you go.
No,
and by the way, of course I listen to you. What else am I going to do while rubbing tapioca all over my naked body?
So I thought he was going to say,
we get that.
What I thought he was going to say is, what else am I going to do while rubbing one out? And then he took it to another level.
Yeah, we get that too.
Yeah.
So I've never had tapioca, so I look forward to coming to Kentucky one day.
I was going to say, which, by the way, this is also
really
a thing
eat it a
to
lot
remind
here, dude.
you. This is a thing to remind you to invest in tapioca, because the more episodes you put out, the more the demand's going to go up. So I'm not telling you how to invest your money, but I'm saying.
Actually jumping onto a share site right now. I'm just going to make that.
Yeah, I was going to say, you can come to Kentucky and we'll give you a heaping helping of a hot brown, a mint julep, and spoon bread, so you can just puke and never want to come back to this fucking state ever again.
You forgot the best, Chad.
Oh God, yeah, that shit. Oh
no, the best. It says it right on the can somewhere. The best of the bluegrass in a green glass. So this is
so wait. Cover up the bottom part. And only show them the logo, so they don't know what that is spelled. What that's supposed to say.
Like that? Is that what you're looking for?
Yeah. Do you know what that actually says?
A-late.
Yes.
And okay. Yeah, L81. But it's supposed to say a late one.
Well, the story, the entire story behind L8 is that it was created by somebody's crazy uncle. I mean, the bottles used to have the story on it, and it literally said, "Our eccentric uncle," which is a nice way to say we never put him in an asylum, but we didn't leave him alone too often.
And what it really should say is, "Hey, we stole ginger ale from Canada Dry and made it shitty."
It's not just ginger ale; it's got citrus in it too.
I don't know if y'all know
something here, Ben.
I've also seen what you've drank before, sir. You do not get to sit on a high horse.
Listen.
I feel like it's
showers or how he put his way through college. Ben.
I feel like it's the kind of thing that the dad in Barbarian drinks.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, honestly, as I was watching it, I was like, yeah, I'd have it. I mean, honestly, that character would get elected for political office in this country right now. I'm not being political. Somebody would vote for him. Somebody would be like, that's the type of guy I could have a beer with.
Real quick, have we all seen Barbarian?
Yep.
I watched it. Yeah.
Okay. I liked it, but is it not slightly overrated?
No, underrated. It's great.
I love the fact. Here's why, Joe, I think it works.
It does work, but
no. Here's the way, though, I think it works.
It's not that great.
No, here's the reason I think so many people think it's great, though. I read the description. 2 people show up at an Airbnb at the same time.
Yeah.
That's the description. And then I watched the movie, and that's the first 15 minutes of the film. And I was like, well, I don't know where we're going. Let's go.
Well,
Yeah,
this
no,
is
I
the
think
thing,
that's why
and I
there was
said this
no spoiler.
in our reaction video. Like, I just think it's such a very multi-layered movie, and I likened it to Jeepers Creepers in the way it builds upon itself. Like, it starts off as one story, and by the time you get to the end, you've had about 3 or 4 stories. And I think having the cinema experience with an audience that's reacting to it made all the difference in the world.
I bet it did because I watched it alone late at night. Yes.
Yeah,
I
look,
agree.
and
I watched it alone late at night too. It didn't. I don't think it's over. Like I said, I had no idea where that movie was going.
When
I
Joe's
didn't know anything about it going into it.
Neither did I.
Mm.
No frame of reference.
I
But I'd
think
tell
that's
you,
why it
as
worked.
some-
Yeah.
As someone who has been trying to use Airbnb lately, the nightmare scenario is not 2 people being booked in at the same time. The nightmare scenario is 2 weeks out of your event that you're traveling to, and all the prices of the last few remaining Airbnbs have shot through the roof, and then your host cancels on you. That's the nightmare, and all of it, you've got nowhere to stay. There. Oh, we'll let you book a place of equal or lesser value, and you're like, they do not exist.
Well, mate, the sequel just wrote itself.
Yeah, that's what it is.
So this is what I
By
think.
the way, real quick, going back to Barbarian, real quick, Joe. I just want to say my favorite review I've read about it literally just said this movie's basically about 2 whiny babies that book the same Airbnb, and it only works as a joke if you know how the movie ends.
Right.
Yeah.
But I think what it is I kept waiting for another layer. So the creature, the barbarian, whatever, is the big bad. And I'm sorry if you probably turn it off. If you haven't seen Barbarian, go watch it. It's really good. I'm not saying there's just I think I kept waiting for more because he has that line. The homeless guy has that line. There are worse things in there than her. And I was like, oh my God, that's where the twist is going to be. Because to me, it's like, oh yeah, it's a twist, but it's not that big of a twist. I don't know.
Maybe that's the sequel.
Maybe
that's the sequel. Maybe there's more down there.
I hope so.
You know, it's like Black Phone, where there's the house, the tunnel connects to the other house across the street or whatever it is. You don't know where else those tunnels go.
Yeah.
And what else is down there? That's just the mum. And hasn't she had like that Airbnb's had a lot of guests? Like, where are they?
Had a lot of
that was
guests.
the entire thing.
Yeah.
And there's even that line, you make a copy of a copy of a copy of a copy. So how many moms or offspring are down there somewhere? By the way, though, speaking of Black Phone and Barbarian, and I'll add to it, I don't know if
I really love
global.
Black Phone.
I don't know if it's global or not, but my wife convinced me to watch the Netflix series The Watcher, which is based on a true story. And I actually knew about that case. I don't know if anybody's watched The Watcher besides me.
Not yet, but it's on my list.
Okay, well, without giving too much away, there's, one of the things is they do find, there's an old alcohol smuggling tunnel under the house from Prohibition, which is, if you read the actual story that's based, or the actual events that it's based on, which is still technically unsolved, it's really interesting. That being said, we are on a real tunnel kick in horror movies right now.
Yeah.
It does seem, Black Phone, Barbarian, it's like, we've already explored every cave everywhere. We've done the descent. What can we do? Let's open a couple tunnels.
You just said that. Go ahead, Ben.
It's the newfound footage thing though. It's a super cheap set.
Yeah,
it is.
It's just black. Miles.
Yeah, because as Ben just referenced, there's a new Aussie horror film called Girl in the Window, which is directed by Mark Hartley, the guy that made that Not Quite Hollywood documentary and a few others. And it's a new horror film, and that's tunnel based as well.
He's got
under
lots
the house.
of tunnels under there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're right, Ben. It's cheap sets. I don't know why, but I don't know why that didn't occur to me. But you're right. It's just cheap sets. Yeah. It's good lighting.
I know when you're pitching your script these days, they want limited locations because they want to do it on, there's that Blumhouse model, right? Like 5 million and under.
Yeah.
So you can't set it.
And when these movies went into production, it would have been COVID related, right? So let's keep this as small as possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, because it falls into the same line as Black Phone and Barbarian. By the way, I want to point out, I have been on a great run because I've had RSV and I couldn't breathe, and I've literally been just kind of sticking around the house, not doing much. I've watched.
Shouldn't go for any run.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you bastard! You made me cough.
Oh yeah, that's us, and not the
Oh, my
disease that
God.
you
There
got
you
from
go.
that hobo.
You there?
No,
Why
I
don't
was on
you
a-
have some of this and put some hair on your chest?
yeah,
Hold
I've been
on
on
a
a
second.
this past week alone. I've been on a steady stream of movies that I refuse to see, know anything about and love. Two of them was Barbarian and Black Phone. The other one is also a cave movie, Crimes of the Future. That was a great film. And then,
Yeah, I haven't watched that yet.
I loved
Haven't
it.
either.
I did. It's it's back Cronenberg being back to where he was. It's also bizarre and it's just great. And then the fourth one was Frankenhooker, by the way.
Yeah, nice. Has anyone watched Terrified 2?
No.
So,
Yes.
the funny story about that, I interviewed for Scarefest. I did the panel for David Thornton Howard, who plays Art the Clown.
That was a few years ago, right?
Yeah, and I never bothered to actually watch Terrifier. And then all this stuff started blowing up about Terrifier 2, and I finally watched Terrifier, and I was like, oh, the clown, it works. Even cheaply,
Wait.
it works.
Wait for
How do
number
I feel
two,
about the
like-
fact that I
Yeah.
was just handling the microphone for that interview and I watched that movie before?
Oh, did you watch it, Chad?
Yeah.
I usually do try to watch something and aware, but for that one I didn't. And the audience pretty much did a good job with that.
Oh yeah, no, they answered
I think,
all.
yeah,
they
well,
asked him all
I
the
think
questions.
Terrified 2 really, really does great things with the character. Like they know what the character is now.
Can I
Okay,
be
good.
honest? Is this all bullshit? Oh, people are getting past it. Is it really that gory?
It's marketing. It's marketing. It is that
Okay.
gory, but it's also just a good.
No,
marketing
look, I
thing.
But
mean,
we're,
I heard
we're
I
five
heard it
horror
was-
geeks here. Is it standard gore?
No, it's extreme. It's extreme.
Okay.
It's extreme, but it's not. None of it's the same
It's
thing
silly.
happened with Centipede.
Yeah.
where they're like storming out of the cinema. Like I'm sure there are, but
That's one movie I
That's-
haven't
that's-
seen yet.
Oh no,
So
I
they-
have
a couple of million.
actually,
Been
I've-
released all three.
Well, and I've actually seen 2.5. I don't think I ever actually watched the third one. That's the one where they're in prison, right? The
Yeah.
Human Centipede 3. Yeah, I don't think I actually bothered to watch that.
It's got a great nut scene.
Yeah.
So I just got a mental image of with the way you said that's where they're in prison, right? Like they finally escape, they're in a getaway car, they get pulled over, and they're like, now you got to go to prison. It's like, oh, we just can't catch a break. That would be a movie. to watch. Oh, we escaped. from the
none
killer,
of
but
the
we
none of those movies are connected like actual storylines. It's like an
Yeah.
anthology sort of series.
Yeah.
Oh, well, no, number 2 is connected to number 1.
Yeah, but it's outside of number one. Like it's a meta.
It's
thing.
outside-
It's a
it's
meta
yeah,
movie. Like
Yeah.
Blair
Yeah.
Witch 2 being meta. It's about the
he's
other one.
watching. Yeah.
Yeah. So another controversial film that we talked about that I don't, and if I missed it, I'm sorry. The Munsters.
No,
We haven't got it yet. We haven't got it yet. Like, and that says a lot. Like, because usually we get stuff on Netflix at the same time when it's Netflix exclusive, and this one they haven't bothered to drop down here. I'm not
That's
in any rush to
crazy.
see it.
Oh
Why?
God,
Not in any
no,
rush.
yeah.
It's almost unwatchable but watchable all at the same time. It's hard to describe.
Yeah, I was ready to throw in the towel for that movie because I am a true fan of the Munsters. It's actually I watched that before I watched the Addams Family. I'm a huge fan of both though, but I grew up watching the Munsters. That was my show. So I was legit, even though I'm not a big a fan as Rob Zombie as these two guys are. I can't really get into a lot of his movies, but I was excited and then I watched it and I got pissed off. It was a huge disappointment.
Well,
there's 15 minutes of that movie that I was like, oh yeah, and then it's the it didn't.
I just don't think you can adapt sitcoms in a sitcom way. You kind of got to be different, like the Brady Bunch movie,
Yeah.
or
Addams Family itself. The
yeah, you
Barry
kind of got to
Sonnenfeld.
do something a bit different with it. You can't just sort of replicate what you love. I haven't seen it yet, but I have no interest.
It was
Well, you
not
got to
good.
try it out. You got to try it out. Okay, so I want to turn it on its head. What questions do you all have for us? What's some bullshit that you've all always wanted to ask us? Is there any?
What's your favorite Troma movie, Joe?
I don't have one. Trauma falls under the same category as a lot of John Waters films, although I do have a favorite John Waters film, as I love John Waters, but I'm
Okay.
not a huge fan of the art.
How about
I'm a huge fan of the movie. Stuck on You.
it's a good one.
They're the early Troma films.
I need
The
to check that
Nudie
one out.
Cuties.
The Nudie Cuties.
When he made sex comedies before he figured out that gross out horror was a viable business model.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Chad mentioned on one of your recent shows, or maybe it was even on the panel, Killer Condom. It's a good
Yeah.
one.
We watched Killer Condom. I don't remember you mentioning that, Chad. Did you?
Yeah, I mentioned it on the panel.
Killer Condom is a lot of fun.
Thank you, James, for that reply.
We watched that together. I think I watched that with
None
you.
of you said bless me. I'll point that.
I don't remember. I don't remember watching that with you. I really don't.
Maybe we didn't. I know
yeah.
I've seen it.
I honestly,
What was that,
the Killer Condom's the only one that I haven't actually been able to find. I've never been able to see it.
Oh, really?
It's an acquisition one.
Now,
Yeah.
why wasn't that one? Why did that never cross over with the Ron Jeremy horror movie One Eyed Monster? That would have been a natural crossover.
Now, see, Glenn, I did not know that was an acquisition one, because I thought that was a Trauma exclusive, because I thought, I even remember, like I mentioned in the panel, how I was a huge fan of all those Trauma in cans and just how they just ran amok and caused chaos in front of all those, industry snots. And I remember, like, early on, it was usually Sergeant Kabuki Man, Toxie, and then the Killer Condom, like walking around cans with Trauma. With
They may have fashioned like a character for it, but it was a Spanish film, wasn't it? A Mexican film that they acquired.
Did I know that?
I think it's Spanish or Mexican, but H.R. Geiger designed the condom.
No shit.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah, I got to see it. I got to find a copy of it.
The reason I know that is because back in the day, Fangoria did a whole article over it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I have a trauma pile here.
what I was going to tell you is that I'm not a huge fan of the art, but Lloyd Kaufman was better than he had any right to be to us. Actually, we hit it off.
Ben spent time with him, like down here as well.
What did you think of him, Ben?
Yeah, he's a lovely guy. He was a lot of fun. But he kind of I don't know what it is inside him that makes him go, but he was like straight off the plane, he was raring to go. Nonstop. He didn't seem to be interested in taking a break. Like,
oh, I know. Yeah. He was at Scarefest, and he never sat down. He was he had a small booth and people were lined up, and he was literally bouncing around this small booth all weekend long. And I don't know how he did it. He's 76 years old now.
I felt for his handler. I literally did, because literally just keeping track of it. If he decided he wanted to go look at something, he's gone. It's
great.
So the story is, and I don't know if we told it on the last episode or not, but the guy that owns Comic-Con is a friend of ours at Lexington Comic-Con. It's the biggest Comic-Con, kind of the tri-state area. It just happens to be in Lexington. And he pulls me aside and says, "You doing this Lloyd Kaufman thing?" And he said, "Yeah, he goes, he can be really shitty to interviewers. He can go off." And I said, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Ah, damn it. Well, this could be interesting." And then I told Chad, I was like, because Chad will get nervous. And I wanted to make it worse. I'm sorry, but I knew my friend. So I had Jared tell him the same story, and Chad's all nervous. But he was golden to us because Chad knew his filmography in and out. And Chad,
I reckon he can be frustrating to some people because he does like to market, right? So he likes to talk about whatever he's selling. And he will commandeer a conversation to that. And I think that would piss a lot of people that are hosting the panel off.
Yeah, I think if we turn that episode into a drinking game and everybody said take a shot every time he said hashtag Shakespeare shitstorm, we would be on the floor.
Or
it's a fantastic movie.
Trauma Now would be another one, because he mentioned. But the other part about that, really quick, sorry, Joe, is he really went into a lot of different stuff, though, because he talked about Stan Lee some. He talked about, and I think if we had more time, we would have got some more out of him. But yes, no, he does definitely. He definitely is talking about what's next. It's always what's next. He doesn't dwell too much in the past.
But he was just a mensch to us, and like I said, we ended up. He was nice enough. He goes, Shakespeare Shitstorm is going to premiere over here. I want you to come over and actually introduce us. And they hung out with. We just had a good time with him, so it went really well. He invited Chad up to see him and have dinner. Yeah,
I'm going. I'm going.
Do it.
That's all there is to it.
We just don't know when we're going to be able to do it.
I will find a way.
A funny story, like, because wherever he goes, right, he likes to wrangle in some local talent to be Toxie or to be a Tromet or something like that. And when he was in Melbourne, correct me if I'm wrong, Ben, he had a guy down here called Dick Dale as Toxie. Now, this is the smallest little guy you can imagine wearing this massive rubber Toxie head. That's a hilarious vision.
I was gonna say that it's funny that I literally just got a text from Dick. Just then.
He's made a new movie called Rib Spreader. It's very trauma.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah,
It's,
go ahead.
Well,
It's
all
screening
about-
it at Monster Fest.
We're playing it at Monster Fest. It just had its premiere at the Adelaide Fringe Festival, but it's about this. It's he's a cigarette company like mascot, kind of lobbyist type guy, whose mother dies of lung cancer. So then he kind of flips a switch and he becomes Rib Spreader, who goes around just killing smokers. That's the broad
Awesome.
the broad plot line, but
Labor of Love.
yeah. I mean, it's taken him. He's been talking about it for about 10 years.
Yeah.
And any visit, he did the kind of the classic kind of the con guest. So if somebody came down for a convention, he's like, "Hey, why don't you come to Adelaide for a couple of days and be in my movie?"
Lawrence R. Harvey from Human Centipede's in it.
Yeah.
Is that my old boss Neil Foley is in it?
And is Lloyd Kaufman in it?
I think Lloyd is in it as well. Yeah,
Yeah, there you go.
from down, he shot some stuff.
Hey,
he just
Can I?
turned up
Yeah,
to
go on.
Melbourne with the camera and said, "Let's just shoot a scene, and I'll edit it in somehow."
Can I mention just
Yeah.
quickly while we're talking Troma? There's something they acquired a few years ago that was never a Troma film, but it terrified the shit out of me as a kid. That the cover on video alone. Does anyone remember this?
Yes.
I've always wanted to see
Yes,
that.
but I've never seen the movie. It had the
It's
same
a fantastic movie.
it had the same cover. You know how well, you all know this better than anyone, but where we will have different art than you all will have it. But that they had the same one. It was at the
Yeah.
video store. And you're absolutely right. I've never seen that. I've actually never seen
that always terrified me at the video store, and I was afraid to
Yeah.
rent it.
See, it
It's
always
on
reminded me
YouTube.
of my grandfather.
It's on YouTube.
I don't know what that says about my family.
But the movie's Blackout.
Good
Yeah,
things.
And Kathleen Quinlan, I think, is in it. It's who was I can't remember who the killer was, but
Kathleen
it's
Quinlan?
really, I think so. Is it
always had a-
Kathleen? Let me look at it.
I always had a
can't
bit of
even read right now.
Kathleen Quinlan.
Yeah, I can't
It's
read the
Lifeguard.
cover.
Why have you never had a crush on me?
Yeah, Kathleen Quinlan, Richard Widmark, Keith Carradine, and Michael Beck.
Wow.
Michael Beck, Swan.
Yes. Yeah. Well, Troma now picked this one up, but I'm sure it's on YouTube for free. If not, Troma now.
Troma now.
I've got the tape somewhere. I've got the tape.
Uh-huh.
But I'm curious. So
Diorama.
we have two of the Tromettes, both of them that were there are going to be on the show. The one's already booked. We're going to be recording, I think, this coming Tuesday. And then the other one, I'm just waiting. It's a long story, but I'm going back and forth with her schedule. But I'm curious to,
Hang on, the schedule in inverted air quotes there for a second.
And then he said, "I'm curious," and he did this. Like,
no, they didn't do the second part, but
I am curious as to what you think they're going to have to say.
yeah, Tromets are usually just geographical. They are just like whatever town he's in. If he's got big boobs, come on and be a Tromet.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm sure they've got fascinating life stories.
I will say, by
that's
the way,
what
Ben,
I'm hoping for, guys.
Ben said a term this week or last week. I can't remember, but I almost fell on the ground laughing. Trauma gyno.
That's what Lloyd calls them. Gynos.
Seriously, gynos? I didn't know. I was like going. I was sitting here laughing as you said trauma gyno. I thought that was something you came up with. I'm like that.
No, I wish. No, it's all in the make your own damn movie books. That's
Yeah.
Lloyd talks about it in that as the gynos, and you're like, that's what a fantastic term.
It's a fascinating world that we live in, where nobody has ever thought about canceling Lloyd Kaufman.
No,
He won't be cancelled. I asked him that on
Yeah.
my interview with him. I said, in today's world, like you're doing what you do and you're doing it safely and you're not getting cancelled. He goes, because my fans won't cancel me. He goes, other people can try, but we've got such a rusted on brand of fan that they don't cancel me and I can do whatever the fuck I want. They protect me.
That's all. And I don't know. He said something at the interview that kind of shocked me. That he said that this next movie is going to probably be Shakespeare Shitstorm. It's probably going to be his last film.
that he
Oh, look,
directs.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I don't think
Yeah.
so.
He said
Well,
if
he did
directs-
mention he had some vertigo issues, and so I wondered if there was a little bit of a health.
Yeah, not
issue
everybody likes Hitchcock. I mean, that's just his thing.
Oh,
Listen,
what
if
a
it's
film
not-
geek joke.
If it's not Marnie or Rope, who cares?
Who gives a
I think, to be
shit?
honest, if it was Lloyd, I would have thought Rear Window would have been more his.
Best
he
time.
likes obviously with Trometz, he likes the birds, mate.
Yeah.
That's true.
True.
There you go. There you go.
I'm gonna laugh when he said, if we ever talk to him again, he says, "Oh, my favorite Hitchcock film is Lifeboat."
It's good. It's good.
God, I love Lifeboat.
Yeah, but it's no life force.
Life Force, Matilda May. Why did you do that to me, Glenn?
Space Vampires.
Have you guys ever read that book?
I've got the hardcover first edition, sir.
I have. For years I had a broken down chair, and I had the paperback held up to one side of it, and I finally read it. And it
But
is.
what did you sit in while you read it?
It was god awful. It is terrible. The movie's better.
It's a good support book.
I've got it
That's
here
about
somewhere.
That's
behind
one of
my
the.
book.
There's only 2 or 3 of those where I go, oh no, the movie's better. It's that one, and another one is a. Speaking of Sean Connery and Lawrence Fishburne, anybody remember Just Cause?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I read the
It's
book
Michael
for
Crichton?
Just Cause. No, it's not written by. I don't think it's Michael Crichton, but I remember it, and it's a terrible book. The movie's much better.
Was that Rising Sun? That was
That's
Michael
Rising
Crichton?
Sun,
Rising Sun,
with
yeah.
Wesley Snipes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that
that's
I actually read that book.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
bet-
how can you capture in words the joy that is Kerry Hiroyuki Tagawa singing karaoke at the start of that film, like singing like country and western karaoke, be captured in the book.
Doesn't he do
Remember.
that? Doesn't he do that again in that Sky Sharks?
He's a cowboy in Sky Sharks. Yeah,
Yeah.
See,
He's-
you fuckers leave me in the dust on
Hold
this. I have
on.
What
no
now?
idea.
I am
Now,
IDing.
Joe,
I am
you
looking
think-
up Sky Sharks because I've never.
Oh,
Sky Sharks is
Ben
amazing.
did the best interview. I reckon that we've done on our show. One of the best interviews was him with this. Was it Gary Fahisi? Is that his name?
Mark
Mark Fahisi, who directed Sky Sharks. It's fantastic, and his interview with Ben is just hilarious.
I'll have to go back. Ben, I asked Glenn this a question, but once
That
Ben
is an amazing poster for Sky Sharks. I'll tell you that.
Look at the cast. Look at the cast.
Oh, I'm looking at it. Yeah, Thomas
Yeah.
Morris, Tony Todd. I mean,
He told me he cast it 100% out of conventions. Like anyone who came to Germany for a convention, he was like, well, okay. He met them at the convention, got the autograph, and said, hey, when you're in town next year, let's
yeah, there's Naomi
let's do this.
Grossman.
And they turn it up. Yeah, and he
It's
did
a-
it because it's
yeah.
all green screen. So
But it's legitimately good. It's very good. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll check it out.
so
Mick Garris is in there.
Oh, really?
Well,
Hmm.
shit, really? I got to look at the whole cast.
Anyway, go on.
Go ahead.
Well, no, I was going to ask Ben. I know it's a cliche question, but I get it, and we get it sometimes. Who's some of your favorite interviews?
well, I don't do many. In fact, I try and avoid them at all cost.
I love it when you join me on interviews, though. That's always fun.
Look. Admittedly, I'm a lot better at spoiling interviews than I am at crafting them.
Well, all right. Well, who are some of the folks you've really, because of your work and the show and Good Movie Monday, who are some of the ones that's like, because I think it was a little bit for me, but it was a lot for Chad the other night. I was like, hey, we just hung out with Lloyd Kaufman all night, and
Well,
Yeah.
I mean,
And we'll
Ben
never
has
get
done
that- we'll never
Ben
get
has
that
been an
back.
escort for a lot of these people when they come to Monster Fest. So
Right,
you've hung
so-
out with plenty, mate.
That's
Now,
what I'm saying.
when you
Who
say
are some-
escort, are we using the
I
American
knew you were going
definition
there.
of that, or sorry?
I wish. Like, I mean, I did get to have dinner with Cassandra Peterson
Yeah,
when we
that's
were
awesome.
at Monster Fest, and she was absolutely amazing. Also, like, I mean, she's batshit crazy, but Lorene Landon is a hell of a lot of fun. Like she is. I've never seen anyone fall over as much and bang into things as much as her. The fact that she is still living is a shock, considering how accident.
Have
she-
Tell us about
she is.
tell us
But she
about
is- she's delightful.
tell us about Linda Blair. I'm sure she's fun.
Linda Blair is quite possibly the worst person in the world.
No, that doesn't shock me. And I think I've heard those things before.
Hold on, let me do it this way. Repossessed Linda Blair? That's for 3 people.
Look, as a patron's point of view, for that particular festival that she was at, I had nothing to do with this festival, and I was just an audience member. And she promised a Q&A before The Exorcist, and she came on for 45 minutes, and she refused to talk about The Exorcist and would only talk about her charity of saving pets or whatever it is. So people that paid good money to come and watch her and listen to her talk about The Exorcist, she gave them nothing.
Joe, I don't mean to spoil this because I believe this is your story, but don't you have a story, Joe, about somebody that was supposed to do an introduction to a movie that they were in with a certain Harry Dean Stanton, and they came on and said, I stole these boots from Harry Dean Stanton, and pretty much left the stage? Am I remembering that right?
Who are you talking about?
Okay, maybe it wasn't you. One of the people that opened for when the Kentucky used to do, maybe it wasn't you.
You know, I don't remember.
Harry Dean
you and I got our introduction stole away from us we had Barry Bostwick. We were going to introduce Barry Bostwick before Rocky
it wasn't
Horror
you that told me this story. I can't remember.
I have other stories about shit going wrong. And
I can't remember. No, this wasn't us. This was one. It was somebody that was attending an event. I thought it was you, so it must have been Harry Dean Stanton. The Kentucky does the Harry Dean Stanton Fest because Harry Dean Stanton's from Kentucky, and the Kentucky Theater used to do a Harry Dean Stanton, and they would bring in other celebrities that Harry Dean Stanton worked with.
They brought in Chris Christopherson. We saw him live,
and I forget who they brought in, and everybody's like, "Oh, that's really cool that he's going to be here." And I'm forgetting the actor, so the story doesn't make much sense. But he literally, the story was the people I knew that went. I thought it was Joe. I'm sorry, Joe.
No, it wasn't.
Literally, he came out on stage, whoever the guest was, in a bright red, old school cowboy boots. And he looked down and he said, I stole these boots from Harry Dean Stanton, and I didn't tell him. And then he left the stage. So these people had paid all this money for this, and then they played the movie. That was it. That's all he did.
I love the fact that you started that story with the punchline, then told the story to get to the punchline.
Well, because I thought it was Joe that told me that story, and now because I don't remember who it was, but I was 99% sure it was you, Joe. So now somebody, it'll probably end up being our friend Andy, will literally just message me one day, being like, "No, it was blah blah blah." And it was my story.
You have one listener too. Oh, good.
Yeah. It's well, he tunes in and out. We'll see. Yeah. Andy, if you listen to this, please tag Joe.
Actually, I thought James was with me. Now that he's telling the story, I was like, no, Andy was with me when I saw Chris Christopherson, and he it was Pat Garrett and Billy the Kid. He introduced it before, actually. But Ben, so you love Linda Blair?
Yes, big fan.
What did she do? You got one story you can tell about how awesome she was?
Look, I can't really, because she was actually, I didn't have that much to do with her. It was just my co-workers who I didn't do any of the shepherding around. She was too big for me. Mm-hmm. She was festival director and above were the only people that were kind of that had anything to do with her. And so I'm only really going. It's all hearsay. I can't. Yeah, really.
I'm telling that from a patron's perspective.
Yeah, I mean, she did look. I will say that even in that Q&A was supposed to start at, I can't remember, like 8:00. It didn't start till 8:30 because she was in the green room with one of the. I think at that fair we had a premium ticket price where there was a bit of a meet and greet with Linda prior to the screening, and it went well over. Like, she met with this one guy and she was like, I think I must have known you in a previous life, and then cornered this guy who loved it, absolutely loved it.
Well, yeah, he got his money's worth. Just
talking about her previous lives and how they knew each other and what this guy did in a previous life. And he's like, well, it was great.
Meanwhile, there's a couple of hundred of us in the cinema.
Yeah, and he was he was like, I've bought Linda a $500 watch as a present. And he was one of those kind of.
Oh, it's the guy that falls in love with the stripper.
Yeah.
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 So I do got a question for Ben. Because Glenn, again, you all have jobs that we wish we could have. But with Ben, your work with Umbrella Entertainment, where you're compiling these special editions of movies and working on getting all the content for them, that's got to be an amazing job.
Yeah, look.
Well,
The reality
I'm
of it is-
interested in your response because I was like, it would be amazing, except you have to find all the stuff, right? I mean,
yeah, you
you're
got to
digging
find the
through
people and
closets.
you do it on the smell of an oily rag, usually for the budget and stuff like that. And I mean, look at it. Yes and no. At the end of the day, it's essentially it's an admin job.
Right.
Like I'm coordinating those things. I'm trying to find the people to do the thing. Doing the artwork and stuff like that. That's the fun part. It's the part I really enjoy, is commissioning the artwork, especially when it all comes together and it looks great. But sometimes it's easy and sometimes it's very stressful trying to figure out and get in contact with people. And then, especially because we're in Australia. So none of the people for the most part are here. So it's not only are you trying to find, like when the first thing I ever organized was the commentary for Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. And I contacted Cassandra via her contact email on IMDb Pro. And it was random to her agent or whatever. And then it was like, first she replied and she's like, yes, I'd love to do the commentary. Just, and she's like, find somewhere for me to do it. And I was like, how the hell do I find a recording studio in Los Angeles? And I'm not even familiar with the geography. Mm-hmm. So I was like, I can't pick somewhere that's, literally on the other side of the city from where she is. It's like, how do you find these things? And luckily she saved my bacon. She was like, you know what? I'll organize it. I'll get Edie McClurg and John Paragon in. We'll do the commentary, but I'll own it and you just license it from me. Because I had no idea how to do any of that stuff. Like I was just learning by doing.
What a wrangled cast for commentary that is.
And it's a great commentary too. Like it really.
Go ahead.
It really worked out well, and it's on the Arrow. Like that commentary now has gone around the world because it's on the Arrow Blu-ray and all that sort of stuff. Like, and I think like I gave that the guy because the story of that Arrow special edition too was there's this guy in Germany, Sven, who unfortunately has passed away, but he was organizing it for a German release, and he got his own. He wasn't happy with the HD scan that they had. So he went and with his own money, he spent like 15 grand doing a restoration of the print. He did this massive documentary on it where he got everyone. The only person he had trouble getting was Cassandra because of the way it worked in Germany, his company had sub-licensed it from someone else.
Yeah.
And so she just thought he was a pirate because that wasn't the name of the company that was supposed to be releasing the film in Germany. And so that was the big kind of thing. And so I helped him out with that. But then before he could release it, he passed away and his boss just sold everything on to Arrow. And Arrow got all of the stuff, all of his work.
Well, Ben's pretty modest. Like everything that he's involved with that comes out through Umbrella is pretty much an incredible product. Like what are you most proud of? What are you most proud of?
If it happens, that Burt Reynolds box set,
funnily
enough, would be the thing that I'm most proud of because
isn't that already on your site though for pre-order?
Yeah, it's up for pre-order. There's been a bit of a delay with it. We're just working through at the moment, which is why it's because it sold incredibly well when we first announced it on the pre-order, and it's now out of stock. But once we sort out all of those issues, it will hopefully be ready to go very, very soon. But that, like, just the package of that is great. The Sons of Steel turned out really well.
Oh, yeah. If you guys haven't seen that movie, it's great.
The Ghoulies 1 and 2 that we put together.
That was recent, yeah.
With all of the kind of, bunch of podcasts and the alternate TV cuts. But all of that stuff, I can't really take credit for any of it because all I did was I found the kind of, the guy who ran the Ghoulies fan site, and he was like, I've got this and I've got this, and do you want this? And I've got this. And I was like, yes, yes, and yes.
Yeah, but still you have that outlet to release that out to a large audience who would never get to see it. Just like that Elvira commentary. I mean, that is history that we would not have been able to find if you hadn't got it. So I mean, that I just feel like that's got to be an awesome feeling. That would be something that I would go to like be proud of every day.
Yeah,
That's the silver lining. The silver lining.
Yeah.
I have
Yeah.
one question. Who has and does run a Ghoulies fan site? Don't get me wrong.
Rivals of the Munchie fan site.
Don't get me wrong. I like Ghoulies 2 as much as the next person, and will stand on a hill saying it's the best Ghoulies film because it has Royal Dano, one of the best character actors of all time.
Oh God. And what's his name? Oh my God. Creeps.
Night of the Creeps.
No, the Creeps. The one where all the
small person.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name. Also, Royal Dano is in House 2, another just
Are you
wonderful
talking?
sequel
Chad,
classic.
are you talking about the midget from Bordello of Blood?
Yes.
Yeah. Phil Fondegaro.
Yes.
One of my
Phil
favorite actors
Fondegaro.
when I was a kid.
Ben loves him.
I
I
love
love
Phil
Phil
Fondegaro.
Fondegaro. That was the guy who ran the Ghoulies fan club, and who he actually has a book. He had a book that was ready to go. I don't know if it ever actually got published, but his name's Graham Lenev Painter. He is a lovely guy, and both he and this other guy, Paul Ashford, in the UK. They're both UK based, and they had a podcast called Ghoulies Unflushed, which in every episode they tracked down like all the original cast and interviewed them. They tracked down people who worked on the sets and all sorts of more information about the Ghoulies than you ever thought anyone would be able to assemble in one place at one time. Like truly, and that's where it's at. Really, it's those fans. Like I've got these friends who live in Perth, which just as a bit. Perth is approximately 4 or 5 hours by plane from Melbourne.
Oh,
Like it's
damn.
the other side of the country. It's like coast to coast in the US.
Yeah.
Who has he's part of a fan group for the film King Frat. Have you ever heard of King Frat?
No.
It's like I mean, if he ever hears this, he'll be very upset that I've referred to it as an Animal House knockoff. But that's essentially what it is. And it is, I mean, it's amazing. It's a great film. But I'd be surprised if there's 1,000 people on the planet that have heard of the film. And yet there is a small but rabid fan community, all based around King Frat.
Well, that's like my small community of Shacky Tours, mate, the Caddyshack 2 fan club.
Dude,
And by the
But
way,
I like
y'all are
Caddyshack.
talking-
I
too.
like Caddyshack too.
This is one we
My
all
people.
agree on this one. We all
Y'all-
agree on this one. I think we talked
My
about
people.
this last time. We actually,
Yeah.
I mean,
But y'all
I'm
are
endeavoring to write a movie about it.
But you all are
About
write
talking
a
about
movie about making Caddyshack too.
It's called Caddyshack 2 Part 2, and it's all about the Shacky Tours on a road trip pilgrimage to Chevy Chase's mansion to talk him into making a third one.
I would watch that movie. That's like
I
fan.
would
No,
too.
you sold a ticket. I'll be there. But y'all, by the way, y'all mentioned Ghoulies and Munchies, and I must admit, why is nobody talking more about the epic Rick Sloan film Hobgoblins? I just have to mention Rick Sloan's Hobgoblins. Why would you not talk about Hobgoblins?
I reached out to him recently, and he's been through some troubles because I think
Yes.
he's looking after his mum, I think, who's died, or he
And-
might be
and I-
sick himself.
Yeah,
He's
I know
like
he was
Ed
ill
Gein,
briefly
he's
himself.
kept her in the lounge room.
And I said, would
Do
you
it.
come on the show? Like, we'd love to talk about you. And he goes, I'd absolutely love to come on the show. I got one proviso. And I'm like, yeah, name it. And he goes, we don't talk about hobgoblins. And I'm like,
Why?
don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
But he just did. I mean, not just, but in 2009, he was all excited because he made Hobgoblins 2.
I know.
So, I mean, Mystery Science Theater 3000 mocked Hobgoblins. It found a new audience. And I'll be honest, of all the movies they've mocked, it is one of the better ones.
well, Alien from LA is the best one.
But so he'll talk about. I
She's
just
doing
wanna-
that voice, Glenn. Why is she doing that voice?
by
don't
the way,
understand it.
Joe and Chad, I know y'all might not know Rick Sloan. So So what you're telling me though is when he said he would do your show, but he wouldn't talk about Hobgoblins, he was okay talking about Vice Academy 1, Vice Academy 2, Vice Academy 3,
All
Vice
excellent.
Academy 4, Vice Academy 5, and Vice Academy 6. But Hobgoblins is up now. Is Hobgoblins 2 off the table? I have questions, Glenn. I just have questions.
I took it as to mean I'm just not well enough, so I just left it alone. I didn't know how sick he was.
Yeah, I don't.
But
think
I
that's
love
it.
Hobgoblins. I love Hobgoblins, mate. It's a fun movie.
You
By
know,
the way,
that's it. Even without the MST3K, it's a fun movie. It's not Shakespeare, but
It is what it is. You know what you're getting.
Yeah, I didn't watch it for Shakespeare.
By the way,
Do you
James,
guys
I'll
like-
call your hobgoblins and raise you brain damage.
I do have brain damage. You're not supposed to talk about it on the air. We have a non.
I don't think you're allowed to call it that anymore. Yeah, I don't think you're allowed to call it that anymore, Chad.
You suffer from a case of the dumbest.
By the way, Rick Sloan does have the best quote about what type of movies he makes. So if you've ever heard his quote, I always wanted to make movies that I enjoyed while I was a teenager. I think he accomplished it.
Is it? Yeah.
Absolutely. Context is everything when you watch a movie.
But I do want to ask you guys.
Yeah,
do
please.
you like that whole the Mystery Science Theater shtick?
I love
hate
it.
You love
Love
it?
it.
I can't stand it. I
Me
find
neither.
it.
It's disrespectful.
I think
Yeah.
I
I don't
the
think it's
reason,
disrespectful.
I think the reason I love it, and let me give you an example. The worst movie they've ever mocked. Joe, you want to say the title?
Manos, the Hands
The
of
Hands of
Fate.
Fate.
Manos, the Hands of Fate. So Manos, the Hands of Fate is the reason why I think MST3K and other shows like that, and Riff Tracks, the ones where the cast has went on and did other things. I think it's important because Manos would have rotted until there was no film cell left of it. It's not a great movie, but because the fans saw it and went, well, we've got to track this down. We've got to, there's been a friend of mine, actually, he knew how much I loved that episode. A friend from college, he sent me the Blu-ray digitally restored. I mean, this thing looks better than some prints of Citizen Kane.
Yeah.
And so I think there's something to that. And I think part of it's also interesting because, and maybe this is more to do with American audiences, is that some of this stuff would have been lost. I mean, we just didn't care. We didn't.
That's a really good point. That's a really good point. But
Like, yeah.
I don't like, I mean, and this is what makes me a really bad film critic, right? Because I don't like people that professionally trash other people for doing stuff. Like if you create something and put it out there, like that needs to be commended, and you need to find the positive before you find the negative. And I don't like this idea of just ripping a film to shreds that, you know, hundreds of people have put everything into. Yes, there's value in it being, you know, having a revival or whatever, resurgence, but yeah, I get offended by their opinions.
I think
Except if it's the Munsters.
I think one of the things too, though, is if you look at and Frank Conniff wrote a book, 30 films I learned nothing from about, and Frank Conniff is known as TV's Frank, but actually it was, if you kind of read the garage beginnings of it, he got hired originally, and he struggled with alcoholism because he would watch all the films and pick the ones that they would do. And I think what's really interesting, one of the things he talks about in the book is he goes, we didn't hate the movies. He said you couldn't mock what you hate, because we had to watch them over and over and over to get the timing right to do things like that. And that was one of the things that made me actually step back and say, and Joe Hodgson has said this before, is he was like, you know, it's not, he said the potential of all of this was there. The budget may not be, the acting may not be. And so, you know, and matter of fact, actually, Joe Hodgson has said, and I forget, he had said legitimately his favorite film, and he quotes it in the last episode that he did when it was on Comedy Central, but I'm blanking on the title, The Circus of, it's not Fu Manchu, but it's something like that. And he goes, to everyone else, that is a terrible film. But he said, I legitimately love it because it tries to be very, very smart. It just doesn't have the backing to do it. But if you just read it as a script, it's very life affirming. It's very engaging. It's very, so I think that's one of the reasons I do like it, is that it gives it, as a kid, it gave me a reason to watch terrible movies that now when I grow up and watch, and if you catch some of them uncut, you're like Hobgoblins, you're like, oh, this legitimately is just fun. And you can watch it unriffed.
I can't speak for Ben. I'll let him sort of chime in, but I just think I have such an affinity for this bad, trashy cinema. I love it, and it's nostalgic for me that I don't need people to tell me why it sucks, because it is what it is for me, and I get offended personally when people talk smack about these things. And so I can't watch it. I get squeamish, and I'm like, oh, shut the fuck up. You have no idea what you're talking about.
But you really get offended. Actually offended.
Well, kind of. I mean, my opinion on offense is it's yours to own, right? So if I'm offended, I will turn it off and not watch it. It goes no further than that, right?
No, yeah,
and that's the thing. So I am personally offended when they're having these opinions. Like, fuck you. Like you're to quote one of my own reviews years ago, you're pissing on my childhood. It's like, Ben's laughing because he knows what I'm talking about. It's like, fuck you, and I'll turn it off, and I don't watch that show at all. But I don't know. How do you feel about it, Ben?
Well, I mean, look, I remember going to see a screening at the Astor Theatre, which is our big rep cinema here in Melbourne. I went to see Giant Gila Monster or is it Attack of the Gila Monster? Whatever that, the Gila Monster movie.
Yeah. And
I think there's like Fire Maidens from the Moon. I think that was the other one, or maybe Robot Monster. I can't remember what the second film was, but I was there in the crowd, and they were laughing at the film. And it really started to upset me, because I was like, considering that these guys made this in the 60s with zero budget, like these movies are amazing. I couldn't figure out how to do half the stuff they've done now with the technology that I have at my fingertips. I couldn't do it. And I was like, and the movies itself, like, yeah, okay, I guess some bits are kind of corny, but the movies are genuinely entertaining. I thought, and I could totally get if you were like a 12-year-old when that came out, you would have been like, this movie is fucking awesome.
Oh,
this is what I mean when I say that people can't watch movies and apply context.
Yeah, I was just like, and those riff tracks, I find it very similar to commentaries sometimes. When you listen to a commentary and you get about 10 minutes in and you're like, just shut up, I want to watch the movie. And you have to switch the commentary off, which is ironic considering what I do for a living.
Yeah.
But I agree with that, though, because I do think about that in a different context. You talked about you can't provide context. And I've said this before on our show. Literally, the movie that scarred me the most as a child was The Last Unicorn. And I have not watched it as an adult because, quite frankly, I kind of like having that memory of how freaked out an animated cartoon about a unicorn scarred me as a child. And I'm sure if I watched it now, I'd be like, oh, okay, I can appreciate the art.
And then you'd masturbate to the booby bird.
No, it is all about the skeleton. But anyway,
Clash of the Titans.
But I mean, like, what I'm talking about is people can't apply context in terms of like time, place, restraints, and all that kind of stuff. When you go see something like The Exorcist, if they're doing a retro screening, people will always laugh when she pisses on the carpet, right? That to me is the scariest part of the whole fucking movie, what that implies, and they just can't seem to grab the logic of context there.
I don't see that. Amazes me. People would laugh at that scene. I mean, that's the exact opposite emotion that it evokes in me when I see that.
I hadn't really thought about people laughing at it.
Yeah, it's the funniest. When in Repossessed, it is the funniest scene in the movie where she like a car gets her face and rubs it in it.
But I guess that's just like where if you really legitimately love movies, you get absorbed into what is being projected. Like, for example, Repossessed, it's a comedy. You're supposed to laugh, but Exorcist is a dark horror film that,
however,
if you get absorbed into there, you're not getting that emotion.
I can say, and it's especially true with horror, you watch it so many times that it can be funny. And I think of my friend Ralph in high school screaming in the middle of like the hallway, going, "Please, Jesus, fuck me with the big thing towards his crotch." And it can be watching it. The whole Beetlejuice line, I've seen it 167 times, and it keeps getting funnier.
Every single time I see it.
There is some humor to it.
We quoted that line on last night's episode.
Yeah,
it's just true. So I do see where it can get funny.
Well,
I don't have a strong opinion either way. Riff Tracks is all about the movie they're doing. However, I have a really deep love of Starship Troopers, and I went to when they did the live one, and it was a crowdfunded one, and I enjoyed some of it, but also part of it was like, damn, I saw this movie 3 times in the theater. I loved it so much. So
Yeah,
I do
well,
kind
you-
of say what you're saying. I do.
You
understand
don't take the
level-
piss out of that. Like, to me, like that's just a great movie of its time.
Well,
like,
that
you just
and
don't
that
take the
movie's
piss
a
out of it.
comedy anyway. You
Yeah,
know what I mean?
it's a satire. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's
already a
satire, yeah.
satire.
It's
It's just
already over the
RoboCop
top.
worked better for that. I get it.
I will say, I agree with James because I like Mystery Science Theater and some riff tracks, but the reason I like them is because they're introducing me to movies that I had never heard of. And it really does at some points where I'm not even paying attention to the jokes. I'm actually watching the movie and it doesn't even make me go, oh, shut up. I'm just involved in the movie and
Well,
how in the corniness and just everything about those movies.
Well, I was going to say, and one of the things that it did for me was, oddly enough, after I saw the episode years ago, the beginning of the end with, he attended Minnesota State. Anyway, but beginning of the end, I was reading later on Bryan Cranston's autobiography. And he mentions, he goes, his dad was an actor, and he goes, he's best known for one scene in beginning of the end where he's supposed to be a military guy on top of the stuff. And he goes, and he worked for Burt I. Gordon. And I knew, immediately started naming off Burt I. Gordon films, who I would not know about if it wasn't for because they constantly go, oh, it's a Burt I. Gordon film, which means it was made for about $6, which goes back, actually, I think, to your point, Glenn, because if you watch that film and you're above about 10 years old, you'll realize that every special effects of the grasshoppers being giant is because he took a postcard of Chicago and put a grasshopper in front of it.
Yeah.
And you can very much tell it, but I actually was watching it with my kids a while back, and for my kids, they were like, "Oh wow, how did they get a grasshopper that big?" And I'm like, "It's a postcard. It's a postcard." And literally, and then they were like, "Oh,
yeah,
that's really
trust
cool."
you to spoil the illusion for them.
No, but
Yeah.
they were actually my eldest is getting really into movies and acting and stuff, and so that's really inventive. And I'm like, you know what, it is. I mean, if you don't have the money, and I've never had any money, so if I did anything, it was on the cheap. It is really inventive. You should totally do stuff like that. Make stuff. And I think about the people that we look at now, Sam Raimi and all these people that started with these old 8-minute. I think there's still value in that. And
teach kids how to make their own stop motion little shorts, and they're on the right path. That's
They'll
movie
eat
making right there.
So Ben,
that's how that saying goes, I think.
Eat grasshopper.
Ben, who is one that you haven't got to meet yet? Who's your big fish of someone who's a hero of yours? Because I asked Glenn about this before.
The funny thing is, it is like it would
I know where
be,
he's going. And they've had him. They've had him, Ben.
and you've had him. It would be Jim. I don't want to do it. Like Glenn actually asked early on in the show, is like, if I can get Jim Wynorski, do you want to do it? And I was like, no, I don't. Like I need him.
We've decided we're not doing that. Yeah.
I need him to remain the fantasy figure in my head, not the arsehole that he probably actually is in real life.
So
But
here's the thing.
that's the interview is different than the actual man. So go, Chad.
Because that's the thing. I was the one that set up Wynorski. I went out of my way to contact him, and like I had several conversations with him prior to recording, and he was the nicest man I've ever met. I was talking to him about his films. He goes, yeah, I'm like, I love Swamp Thing 2.
Boobies. I love boobies. Was that
Well,
I love big boobies.
I seriously
love some tig old bitties.
I could go off. I went on like a 10-minute rant about how much Return to Swamp Thing meant to me as a kid, because I watched it on loop. And we talked back and forth. And then as soon as he got on that call,
as soon as the record got hit,
he flipped that character on it, and all of a sudden he was like, Mr. Dick. And I'm like, what the hell just happened? I'm like, and then I don't remember the end of it, because I was just absolutely devastated by the end.
He took the wind out of your sails.
Yeah, but didn't he just like hang up and leave? He didn't really say much.
He got better. And Glenn, we talked about this when you were on the show, because you were talking about he was one of your biggest pains in the asses. And actually, you actually said you buttered him up and got some good stuff out of him. I don't know if you remember giving us this as a compliment, but you did. And I think he got better as we went along. He just wanted to make jokes about who he fucked as we went along. And by the way, that's fine with me, because back when you were talking about all of them, according to him,
literally anytime there was a lull,
I
he
fucked
would
her.
just scream out, "Yep."
I fucked her. Yeah, no,
I
the in Return to Swamp Thing, the gorgeous.
No, he didn't
no,
fuck Heather Locklear.
No,
He
but the
did not-
gorgeous,
he did not say he did.
the gorgeous security guard that worked for the main villain, that he was dating her at the time.
Yeah, right.
And I'm like,
Yeah,
oh
I mean,
man,
I get that impression, like the terrorist from Demolition High.
Yeah.
yeah.
He was dating, and Rainbow Smith and
Rocky DeMarco. There's a few of these
Rocky,
other, that they had relationships with.
But I mean,
But-
that kind of says a lot about us when you ask him what the pinnacle interview would be, and he says Jim Wynorski.
Look, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't like I have a lot of trouble kind of fanboying at conventions and stuff. I don't like to really go up. I went up to like Carolyn Monroe when I went to Son of Monsterpalooza the last time I was in the States, and I got an autograph. But usually I don't do it because I find that I don't really have much to talk about, and that's why I don't like doing the interviews solo, because I find the question and answer process just doesn't really fit my personality.
Yeah.
And this is
I get
why
that.
I love it when Ben sits on an interview, because I'll do all the handling of the questions, but Ben can interject with, and that's what his purpose is on the show, right? Like I'm scripted, and then he comes in unscripted and sort of takes us in a direction I wasn't expecting, and that's where the spontaneity comes in.
And what's really good about this, Ben, is, for example, you had no intentions of asking that Mystery Science Theater question, and you just popped in your head, you asked it, and we spent 15 damn minutes on that.
He does that on the show every week.
But it's a real, and if you guys think I'm being facetious, that's not it at all. I am giving you a compliment. It's a real talent, because trying to have that conversation. I mean, there's legendary stories about Orson Welles going, please just throw those fucking questions away and let's just have a conversation.
Yeah,
and
that's almost my favorite. There was a talk show host. It was the English one who
Graham Norton.
No. He was a host of one of the late night shows in the US, but he was Scottish.
Craig
Ferguson.
I said it first. Fuck all you.
Craig Ferguson, and he would always tear up the questions right at the start of the show, and just talk about whatever. And sometimes it worked, and sometimes it didn't, but it was always entertaining.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you could do that. So my favorite episodes of Bonehead, I mean, I've got some that I don't really remember them all. They kind of come and go, because back to the original question, when I was asking you beforehand, I wanted to say is I don't know how long Bonehead will go. I don't know how long Good Movie Monday will go. I don't know. We could end it tomorrow. We could go for another however many years, but I kind of maybe, but I kind of want to then go back and give some time and then revisit. And I do love the fact, the best part of our show for me, other than hanging out with two as assholes. Did I freeze again?
Yeah, you did. It was just perfect because it gave me time to go.
I thought we were going to get a compliment, and then nope.
No, asshole. Other than hanging out with my friends, is that, and do the same as my wife and their wives would say too, is that y'all do the same shit you do if you're down here in the damn basement. But anyway, is that all the people, and James always says all the recorded history, right, gentlemen?
Yeah,
well,
I mean, and we've got some shit out of some people.
That's why I love it. I mean,
other people didn't get.
That's the benefit of how this show, not by choice but by necessity. We didn't get the big names. We've got like production design, Mick and Bart Mixon, who does visual effects, and Michael Moore, the prop guy. Hearing those stories, the Michael Moore interview, the best part was when he told us that he designed the Bat Gremlin for Gremlin 2 and put a giant penis on it, and that's how he delivered it to Joe
Dante.
Dante, and they eventually made him take it off. But he just kept putting penises on him. Sorry, Ben.
I was going to say, I would love it if you could find the artist who did the penis on the Little Mermaid cover. Like, that would be a great interview.
But
I've got to say, we got almost 3 hours from a storyboard artist, Peter Von Schally, and that was one of my favorite interviews. And him just riffing about picking up Leonardo DiCaprio. It's not Leonardo. Was it Leonardo DiCaprio's dad?
It's Leo DiCaprio's dad. They were close. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is what you guys have over us, right? Because you get long format interviews out of these people. Like ours are generally just 15, 20 minute pre-recorded interviews that we drop into the show, right? So they're very, very structured because I've got a time frame.
Right.
You guys can elicit so much more out of them, and I love that out of what
Yeah,
you
and
guys do.
sometimes they tell us that they're only going to give us an hour, and they do a hard
Yeah.
out. But then
Al,
there's other
I
ones
think-
who will say I can probably do an hour, like Pete Von Shally, and then he talked. He goes,
Oh,
"Holy geez, I
Same.
talked for 3
Nobody.
hours."
no, but and
I
he's
think
one
our
of my-
best one. Yeah,
Go
go
ahead.
on. Oh, I think
I was
our
gonna
best
say-
one, Ben.
Go ahead. I'll
Son
stop.
of a bitch, Glenn. James, he's the guest. He is the guest. Ben and Glenn are the guests.
Well,
Where
I was going
am
to say,
I?
I think our best one, Ben, was when we had Brian Usner on the show, and he said, I'll only give you... No, I said, look, we'll just do 20 to 15 minutes. And he goes, you'll do however damn long I want you to do. I'm like, okay. And he gave us a 90-minute interview. Like, it was just...
Yeah.
And it was so unscripted and...
That's another one I could never nail down that you finally nailed down, you son of a bitch.
He's great. And he
He's
sang
great.
for us.
Yeah, he did. And I will say that a thing with that Mark Verhees interview is I think that original cut went for like 90 minutes.
Yeah, we had to whittle that one down.
You had to
for an
whittle
insert.
it down because I'm just happy to talk. Especially
Hey,
like,
that-
you know,
That same episode, Ben, we had Lloyd Kaufman on. There was
yeah,
two
we did. Yeah,
interviews.
that's right. There's 2
Yeah.
interviews on that episode. And that, you know, but like I did the interview with Leon about Killing of America from EX Film when he released that on Blu-ray here. And I went back and did it again. I was like, because I didn't have any, because I was good friends with Leon. I was like, I don't need to really prep any questions. I did the interview and then I listened back to it. And I'm like, why the fuck didn't I ask? And so I just said, look, do you reckon we could do it again? I did it again. I just submitted the second one with that and actually had proper questions.
Yeah, no, so that's been some of my favorite part. I mean, just the access and some
Mm.
of the people. And the other thing is we don't have a huge viewership or listeners, and we've had to trade on our basically goodwill and word of mouth.
Well, I was about to say, I
And
mean,
COVID.
because honestly,
COVID helped a little, Chad, but I mean, I don't know that we were getting people before COVID.
Well, I know we were.
But I think also though one of the things that we've done directly and indirectly is, as Joe was saying, part of it's word of mouth, but part of it is, for instance, one of my favorite interviews that I got set up in the weirdest way started because Jeffrey Combs, the actor, posted about, one of the coolest things about doing Star Trek Enterprise was the fact that they made the Andorian antenna move. And he said it was actually done by a puppeteer. And I immediately just saw that. And as a Star Trek nerd went, who did it? And he goes, I used to have their business card. I should really find that. And then what happened, and I say this with nothing with respect, because I am a nerd, the nerds started helping, going, oh, we'll help you find it. And then we tracked down, I got the guy's name. And I ran it by Jeffrey Combs because he was still responding to me on Twitter. And I said, is it this guy? And he goes, yes, that is him. And that's how we got that interview, because I reached out and I said, Jeffrey Combs highly recommends you. Will you do our show? And
Amazing.
he said, I have never had anybody ask me about designing the Andorian. Yes, I'll absolutely do your show.
I mean, look, that is one of the funny things that when I put together Blu-rays of Australian films, and I was doing one recently, and it was the second film that we had released on Blu-ray with the same cinematographer. And I was talking to the cinematographer for this second one, and I mentioned that we had done his film prior. I don't really want to name names. And he was like, why didn't anyone call me when you did the last one? And I'm like, we didn't know how. Like it's not like you're in the phone book. I mean, it probably was in the phone book, but there's a lot of other people with the same name in the phone book. We
We
didn't
don't
know
have
how to
phone books anymore.
It's it's not like you can.
It is tough. It is
automatically
tough.
know how to get in touch with these people.
Well, it's funny. This is a funny story about like I booked a lot of the early guests, and I was just randomly going to like, okay, this is one of the movies I absolutely love. I would love to talk to somebody who did it, and I would look through the production notes, going, okay, let me see if I can find this person, and I would find this person, and I would contact them. And then one of our very first interview with anybody who worked in Hollywood was Mick Strawn, who's now like a very personal, close friend of ours. And I would, after contacting the person, I would find out that they're friends with Mick. And I had to keep going back to Mick and going, I am not trying to build off of your name. I am so sorry. I just kept finding out that they were friends with Mick. And I was going, by the way, could you help me out with this? Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, but
And
isn't
we're
Mick
still
Strawn is kind
doing
of
it.
like, isn't Mick Strawn kind of like the Mick Garris of the special effects world? Like everybody
Yeah,
knows him and
everybody
revolves
Yeah,
around
I
him.
mean, he
amazing.
worked
They-
on everything from what's the Marky Mark porn movie to Blade to Candyman to the canceled Fantastic Four. But the other part about that is that I find fascinating, and I wanted to acknowledge this because not that anybody's going to hear that and be like, maybe we should change our mind. But I think I speak for the Boneheads. We would love to talk to some people that worked on the Muppets. And I have contacted and spoken to 4 different people that worked on the old school Muppets when Jim Henson, and literally the response I have gotten from all 4 is nobody's going to care about those stories. Nobody is going to care.
Let's do that for our show and beat them to it and they'll piss me off.
Yeah, no, go ahead. No, because all we will do, and I'm going to tell you this right now, all we will do is take your show that you record, we'll redub us asking the questions and then cut in the response.
Or we will say we're on Good Movie Monday as well. We'd love to talk to you, only we're not going to give you 15 or 20 minutes. You can come talk to us for 6 hours.
You could pitch your next project.
You could do Peter David. We had Peter David, who's a science fiction writer, the next thing I was going to say. 3 hours.
Peter David's not a science fiction writer.
We ended it.
And then he said, "Come back."
My pants.
Best part about that is when he went off on aliens.
And I kept
encouraging him to.
I love that though, because
we'll go for Frank Oz, mate. We'll go for Frank Oz.
Peter David was the equivalent.
Oh, fuck you, Glenn! If you get Frank Oz,
I want to do Frank Oz, but I don't want to talk Muppets. Oddly enough, I would love to say I want you, for as long as you'll give me, to tell me every story you can about the making of Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. Just start going. I will just listen the entire time.
If you get Frank Oz, I am going to message you every week at the exact same time a picture of my brown eye. Just every day until the day I die.
If we got Frank Oz, I could tell him how I lost a $5 bet because I was convinced that he was the alien in the beginning of Star Wars that talks to Luke in the cantina, who does my friend doesn't like you. Yeah. I don't like you either. And I was like, that's Frank Oz, 100%. And then it was like, all my friends are like, no. That's 100% not Frank Oz.
Yes, we love Dirty Rotten Scoundrels. I had Ian McDermott on a stage full of nothing but Star Wars fans at Comic-Con, and the first thing I go is, we're not going to talk about Star Wars. I need your best Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
I would rather talk about What About Bob than Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Oh, Little Shop of Horrors.
Okay. Yeah, love Dirty Rotten Scoundrels.
Just his beginning scene in the Blues Brothers. Right?
I showed my daughter.
One condom new. One condom.
No,
used.
One
prophylactic. Sorry, prophylactic. I apologize. I should know better. I've watched that.
It's on a pencil. It's on a pencil, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it says so. It's not used. Prophylactic, soiled.
I think
you're right. I dropped the ball. I brought shame to the Blues Brothers.
I was going to say this Halloween. So every week for Halloween, I introduced my oldest daughter, she's 8, to movies Halloween related that I love. So first week was Beetlejuice. And then the second week I'm like, oh, do I show her Little Shop of Horrors? Do I show it to her? I'm like, you know what? She's old enough. She can handle it. So I showed her Little Shop of Horrors, and I got emotional because I was watching her watch the movie and realizing that's how I watched the movie when I was that age. And
it's great.
She loved it. She talked to me. She was singing Suddenly Seymour for a whole week. And I'm just like going, oh man, that's my kid. And I was like, it was literally like going back in time and watching me in front of the, small tube television on the floor like this, watching Little Shop of Horror over and over again. It was great. So,
oddly enough, Chad,
talk to Frank Oz about Little Shop of Horrors.
Oddly enough, Chad, I introduced my kids to Little Shop of Horrors, and they really enjoyed it. Obviously, my theater loving kid enjoyed it. The funny part to me though was, I've been scarred so much by Family Guy that the fact that Family Guy has made about 14 different allusions to Little Shop of Horrors, mocking the songs in it, that I kept slipping into the Family Guy versions of the songs, and that's how scarred my mind is.
I tried that. I tried that with my niece. My niece is obsessed with horror movies, and she's 12 now. And I keep trying to show her stuff. I was like, her mother is very against me showing her like any horror movies. But even when she was like 7, I tried to put on the beginning of Star Wars, just to that Darth Vader introduction. I'm like, how scary is this? And she's like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, oh, okay then. Let's see. I put on the opening scene of
She
Dawn
was-
of the Dead, the remake, with the kid in phaser. I'm like,
No,
oh,
she
God.
responded, "I want martyrs or better."
Yeah. She was obsessed. Like on the top shelf in the other room, in the lounge room, I've got the Demons VHS, which is the demon's face.
Mm-hmm.
The green one?
That's the one that she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, can I watch that one? Can I?"
Yeah.
Uh,
That was me as a kid.
and then I spoiled it for her. Like she was supposed to go with a friend. She was going to see Barbarian last week, and I was around at their place, and she was at the friend's house, and she'd called up to say, "Oh, look, we didn't get to go to the movie last night. Can you?" To her mother, "Can you take us?" And I was like, "Have you seen Barbarian? Like that's not appropriate." And I totally spoiled it for her because I think you got to work. Like to see those movies, you got to work to see them when you're not old enough to see them. Otherwise, you don't appreciate them enough. Like
Once
you really
again-
got to put the effort in.
So what you're saying is, when you're saying about work, you're like, I'm going to go buy a ticket for Lyle Crocodile, but
Yeah.
I'm going to walk my ass straight past it into Barbarian. Is that what you mean
Yeah.
by work? Because
Yeah, but Ben and I would both go into Lyle Crocodile. You know it.
Yeah,
By
totally.
the way,
But,
though,
you know,
once
you gotta-
again, harkening back to what I said earlier, have you thought about introducing your niece to the Ultimate in Terror, The Last Unicorn? I've just thrown it out.
well, that's she's not 5 anymore. My 6-year-old niece. I would love to because she always wants to watch horror movies that aren't scary. That's her. She really wants to be and do what her big sister, like be into the same things that her
Well,
big
did
sister
you not hear
Like,
his
he's got-
story about the last unicorn?
Yeah.
Terrifying.
Like,
Terrifying. The bull is on fire. What part of that do you all not understand? That's creepy.
boy, he really put the Kentucky emphasis on that.
on
That
fire.
bull's on fire.
On fire. Fire, I say.
Oh,
Have
bar.
you drank any of this fireball? It's
But,
delicious.
Like I think if you haven't figured out how to, like I used to have to sneak up after my parents had gone to bed and watch the late night horror movies on TV, or sneak them in. Like you go to the video store and you try and swap the tape over, and you put the horror movie tape into the kids movie cover and watch it that way, or you, like a friend at school, like you borrowed 10th generation dub. Like you really had to work hard because these things weren't accessible. Like all she has to do is figure out how to get past the parental lock on Netflix. But even that, like you got to do something. You got to.
See, I did not have that
Otherwise-
experience. My mom did not censor me at all. I still remember like going to the video store one day and we picked up the Dead Pit, Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and then my brothers picked up a Lorenzo, maybe Snake Eater. I think it was Snake Eater.
Now that's the more scarring of those films because where does he hide? Where did he hide that the bug?
Yeah,
Where did he hide the whole thing?
Yeah,
The whole
that
thing
was
where
the same
he's
with me.
naked and he's like, "Where's the wire?"
By the way, I love
Same
the
with
fact
me,
that
Chad. Like me at
Go
video
ahead.
stores, like I went to hire the lamp when I was about 8, and like they wouldn't let me hire the lamp because it's R-rated down here. And so my mum marched right back in and said, "You will hire that to my son."
I actually have a question for you. And I know you all normally do movies, but thinking about being censored and things like that, or your parents watching what you watch or things like that. My parents were very strict on movies, but they would let me read anything. And oddly enough, I think that's why I'm not desensitized. I really still enjoy it, but horror novels.
Mhm.
I read them. I enjoy them, but they don't give me the same buzz as movies. They don't affect me the same way. I think William Beagle wrote The Last Unicorn. I've read The Last Unicorn. It doesn't terrify me the way the cartoon did. I say all of that to say, I know you all normally talk about movies, but as fans of horror movies, are there horror novels that you all gravitate toward, or does it just not give you the same effect?
Well, I tend to mostly read children's literature, so Wizard of Oz, like original never-ending story, that type of stuff. And if I go horror, I'm pretty basic with my like early Stephen King stuff. Yeah, but I don't read a lot of horror. It's mainly kids literature, good kids literature.
Like I used to be a voracious reader, but I like in the last 5 years, I guess, since I subscribed to Audible, I completely stopped reading anything. I just listened to audiobooks.
You mean Newsly?
Newsly. When I subscribed to Newsly, I stopped. I've noticed, like, almost overnight, like even ebooks, I stopped reading ebooks. I just wait for the audiobook to come out. And when I listen to horror audio books, they terrify me. Like, I listen to a lot of like zombie apocalypse kind of end of the world ones, which I love, and the tension. That's what really does it for me. It's not so much the fear for horror movies; it's the tension.
I was going to say, it's interesting you brought up audiobooks, because I've been listening. I do audiobooks when I drive because I'm in my car more than I should be. And you bring that up. The voice, who does the reading, really has to work for horror, because I was listening to one, and it's young adult aimed, and what is it? The Mark of Cain, and it's a continuation of one called Long Lankin, and but whoever, and I'm blanking on who did the voice work, but it's about these witches that were burned, and it turns out you have to burn witches twice for them to not be able to come back and do terrible things, and they curse the family, and they keep coming back and possessing. But it's a really cool story, but it's the voice, the voice talent, the actor that does it really does matter. So it's interesting you brought up audiobooks, because I agree. It's so, if they can build the tension, and if there's multiple voices, how well they can do those multiple voices to where I can keep track of who's talking.
And can you imagine how hard it would be to maintain that? Because I know sometimes they do it in segments and breaks and that, but if you're going a long haul of reading text, it's such a hard thing to do.
Like, I think the last horror novel I read, I think, was Slugs by what's his name, Shane Hudson. Is that his name? They based the movie Slugs off his novel. Like, it was and he's done it. He's like a prolific horror writer, and he's this like lovely guy in the UK who was more than willing to. At one point, we were going to release Slugs, and then I think Arrow ended up doing it, and we're like, well, okay, we're not going to be able to compete with this. But I contacted him for an interview, and he was like, yes, 100%, I'll do it. And then it all fell through, and he just kept. He's like, you want to interview me? Come, I do it. I'm willing to talk. Do you want to interview me? Like, and I was like, I've got nothing to interview about now. I should have just done it just to have a chat with him.
Well, yeah, of course. Because once again, back to what we were saying, that's the best part of this job.
Best part, yeah, is just having the chat.
Yeah.
Well, that's what look, I had a great time. I came to the second time I went to the US. I met up with Steve DeJarnay, the director of Cherry 2000 and Miracle Mile.
I'm trying to get him on the show.
He's great. He's great. And he's a super nice guy. Like, and I went around to his house, and he told me way too much about the making of those films. And he's like, you can't use any of this. And I was like, 100% understood. But
you can give us one little thing.
No, I can't give you any.
Give us your best Melanie Griffith was so awful story.
No, Melanie. It wasn't that Melanie Griffith was awful. I don't know if.
Don't do it, Ben. Don't do it.
No, I was gonna say, Joe, in all fairness, how many times have we cut the camera, and then people said, I'm gonna tell you something, but it never leaves us. And we respect that.
Now, absolutely, because James is correct. That has happened to us. And actually in the last 2 years, more than it did the first couple of years of the cameras off. We had a good time. And I know we're getting close to our 2 hours now. We didn't even lay out a time on how long we're going to talk. We've almost been talking 2 hours, gentlemen. But
I felt it.
They
you
told
look
us
like you felt it.
They told us some shit once everything was done. I was like, God damn, you couldn't just let us push record. Yeah. And he's like, no.
See, I interviewed somebody recently. I'm not going to say who, but I like to hit record immediately because I don't like to run the risk of accidentally not hitting record when we're in the mode of talking. And so he comes into it and he went off at me. He goes, don't record. He goes, I'll tell you when to record. And he like fucking scolded me. I'm like, okay, dude, well, you better hope I remember to hit record again because fuck. But yeah, and then it sort of ruined the mood of the whole conversation.
Right. But I mean, and I can't say the director, but he just, and there's a couple of huge, one of them, actually, I think most people know about a couple of them, but we heard I'll say this, we've heard shit about Michael Mann and Jim Cameron that we can't talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So what was that?
I just said we can't.
Actually, now there's one story that we do have that was recorded. Speaking of our special effects guy, right?
Yeah.
The one that did the Andorian antennas worked on a certain James Cameron film where he designed the horse puppet the scene where a certain mega action star rides a horse onto an elevator.
Yeah,
and
that's
if you
true.
gentlemen remember the story, he couldn't they couldn't fit the actual horse, and the director of that certain mega action star wasn't happy that the horse wouldn't fit on the elevator, so he made him design a half mechanical, half robotic, but otherwise puppet, and he was inside of it. And a certain mega action star kept thinking it was hilarious to keep breaking wind upon said
Schwarzenegger was farting on the prop guy.
Yep. And
Yeah.
he said the entire time, and actually his comment on James Cameron that we could record was, there's a lot of people that love to work with him, and if you're in that inner circle, he's really great to work with.
Yeah, we got that story, but we did not get a good Super Mario Brothers the movie story.
I'm sorry, Chad. It's not always there, buddy. I can't.
But
do
that
it
begs
all.
the question: like, wouldn't it be cheaper to just make a bigger elevator?
It was something to do with the weight and the ratio of how the actual. And I swear
And
to
they
God,
wanted to film in an actual location. They
Actual
wanted to film in
elevation,
that
yeah.
actual elevator, like that.
Yeah.
It was an actual historic location, so they weren't allowed to mess with certain things. So it was cheaper to build a half robotic, half puppeteered horse and
Wow.
put Arnold on top
But
of it.
Glenn,
The Farrelly brothers have the answer. You just hack their feet off.
but hey, Glenn,
Arnold's or the horse.
you've had a run in with Michael Mann, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Listen, there is actually, speaking of, we've heard about Michael Mann 2 or 3 times. I did a 2-parter, I can't remember why these two couldn't do it, with, oh my God, he's the director of Poltergeist 3, Vice Squad, Dead and Buried. He was laid back at his house on a Saturday morning, and it's all in the interview, so I could talk about it. He didn't ask because we've had
Gary Sherman.
Gary Sherman. Gary Sherman's a nice guy. I ended up having to break it into 2. His version of Michael Mann was, I would shoot him with a 357. He had the gun specifically picked out of how he would. Man.
Yeah,
So
he
go
didn't
back
like
and-
me he didn't like me fact checking him, and I did leave quite a bit out of the interview that I could have left in just out of respect. But yeah,
But how many times, this is something that didn't happen to the last 2 years either, and one of them he actually he's going to come back on the show. He's got a new movie coming out. I haven't told these 2 yet, but I've been asked a few times to go back and cut stuff out, and we have.
Yeah, right.
I tend to say, I mean, if it's reasonable, yeah. If it's not reasonable, I'll say I'll just lose the interview. Like, that's not worth it. Like, I kind of crack the shits a bit that way.
No, both of ours I thought was reasonable. One was someone was going through a divorce, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
they had mentioned
They wanted all that
individual.
cut out. And then the other one was the person they were talking about were dead, and they slept on it the next morning, and it said, and I actually think I don't think he was that bad at that person, but once again, we operate on goodwill.
Yeah.
And he did not, there's this.
Yeah,
this
but I
was
mean, it is
a famous
most of the time,
producer.
there's usually good reason, like, their request to remove it, and if it's easy to do, it's not a problem. But if it's unreasonable, it's like, well, you offered that freely, and it's not going to have any big consequence at the end of the day. Like, if they've got attitude behind it, I'd rather just not have the interview and we just move on.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, guys, we've been talking for almost 2 hours. Is there anything else you'd like to ask us? Because simply, you're on our show, so you're supposed to be asking us questions, I guess. When are we going to do your show?
You've done it.
Yeah, but when are we going to do it again?
We're
At
doing
Christmas?
Christmas.
Christmas
Update.
show.
But that's with 46 other Australians.
Joe, do you have your ugly Christmas sweater picked out yet? You didn't have one designed with me and Chad's face on it or nothing? What's the point?
Speaking of martyrs,
Just because I had the stigmata that one time.
stigmata that one time.
All right, one more question for Glenn and Ben.
Yeah.
So answer separately. We'll start with Glenn. Garbage Pail Kids, the movie.
It used to be a big fat yes, and I went back to that probably 3 months ago, fairly recently, and very difficult watch. It was not what I remember. And this is a movie I had watched on repeat right through my early adulthood, right? And
Same
still
here, yeah.
loved it. But the space of maybe a decade, something happened with me, and I just watched it again. I was like, nuts.
Now you prefer Mad Balls now, don't you?
Yeah, totally.
Was there a Mad Balls, the movie?
It was like
Should
a.
have been.
I've got a videotape of it. I've never actually seen it.
I didn't know.
I think it was
a
like,
Mad Balls.
isn't it like it's a TV episode they put on VHS or something?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
there was an animated cartoon of Mad Balls, but yeah, I didn't.
Yeah.
So Glenn,
Yeah,
I mean
that would've
Ben,
I mean, look, I to be honest with you, it is one of the few childhood favorites that I haven't gone back to. So I haven't seen it in about 35.
Hold on to that. Hold on to that. Don't
yeah,
ruin
hold
it.
on to it because I'm with Glenn.
You know, funnily enough, like when I think about it, what comes into my head is the Punky Brewster cartoon for some reason.
That
Like,
had
for
the
some reason,
wish
it just
granting
mixed-
flying alien
the
thing, right?
weird, the leprechaun.
characters are very
thing
similar.
with yeah. It was
Yeah,
like surely there was maybe there was a crossover with the Garbage Pail Kids and the Punky Brewster cartoon
Now,
when they had it together.
am I misremembering this? Because I tried to watch it a couple of years ago and couldn't sit through it.
Yeah, I'm with Glenn. Yeah, I'm with Glenn. I agree.
The
with Ben.
opening credits are like 10 minutes long.
Oh yeah,
Well, you
Like
got to give
isn't it
all
like a
those-
Star Wars intro?
yeah. It's a Star Wars ripoff. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
then it just takes forever, and it's
Joe,
clearly
when
killing
you
time.
make a work of art, you want to give everybody all the credit they deserve.
But can I say this? It's a good looking movie. I love the production design on it. Like,
Oh,
it
yeah.
looks good, and that's what appeals to me is the look of it, particularly in the store. Before the puppets come out of the garbage pail, like just everything the way it's placed on camera looks glorious.
Yeah, but then it goes downhill. Yeah, but I agree with Glenn. I've looked fondly on that movie as a child, and then I watched it maybe 2 years ago, and it just ruined it for me. I'm like, oh, that's so disappointing. Super Mario Brothers, though. Still rules.
Do you think sometimes
Phil
though,
Fondacaro is in it. I'll just
Yeah, he plays Greaser Greg.
yeah, let's put it out there. Phil Fondacaro's in it.
Chad, do you ever think the Garbage Pail Kids look at you and think they're disappointed in the way that you look 35 years later?
Dude, I have a framed picture up in my dork hole of old Garbage Pail Kids, and
Hang on,
yes,
you're what?
I have a dork hole. I call Joe. I call Joe's base. People call him man case. I have a dork hole.
Yeah, I've converted
He started calling my man cave a dork hole, which was fine.
Yeah.
I thought dork hole was actually much more appropriate.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
you put your
upstairs-
dork stick.
We wanted to start a fake website to create our own reviews for posters and stuff when I've like 10 years ago. And my boss's idea was to call the website Film Hole. And he had like a theme song, which like stick it in your film hole. And that was
That sounds awesome.
I would actually, by the way, that
DVDs are going to be, a fantastic film hole.
All right.
I would actually watch that. Oh my God, we've solved it. We can now relaunch the Garbage Pail Kids. The Garbage Pail Kids go to Film Hole.
I swear, before we end, all I can remember is that movie came and went in the theaters, and it was really videotape here, right, Chad?
Oh yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
So
same.
I had a friend named Kevin. I won't say his last name, and I remember I haven't seen him in 20 years, but he obsessed for months and months and months of when this damn movie was going to come out, and he was going to be able to see it in grade
That
school.
sounds like me with Evil Woman / Saving Silverman, because they had the standing up in the
Yes.
cinema, like a good year before that film came out, and I was big into Jack Black, and I had a major thing for was it Amanda Peet?
Yeah.
I
Well,
think. And,
Don't forget
and,
Ali Ermey taking a shit in the garden bed.
and yeah, and they sing Neil Diamond at the end, which is still like that version of was it? I can't even remember the name of the song. The
Oh,
Sing it.
great.
Sweet
Different
Caroline. I don't
no,
remember.
it's they do the it keeps repeating the word sing, like in the chorus. I can't remember the name of the song.
Yep.
But it's completely different to the Neil Diamond version, even though Neil Diamond is singing it on the stage with them, and I was just obsessed with it, and it was very upsetting. It took so long because at first it came out, it was Evil Woman. That's what the standees all said, and then it disappeared, and a year later, Saving Silverman came out, and I was like, "What the fuck is this? Like this, the standee is exactly the same as Evil Woman. Do they just shoot two movies back to back?"
My DVD is the Evil Woman cover.
Yeah.
I didn't even know it was a different name other than Saving Silverman.
Yeah, downhill. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, guys. Thank you all so much for coming on the show. Thank you always for supporting us.
Hey,
how
thank you
else
for
should-
contributing to our show, mate. You guys put in a lot of work for us. Like, it's week after week. You know, you always deliver, so we appreciate that.
This is where
Well,
I
we're-
call the dick sucking segment.
We're going to start
Thank you.
phoning it in, and I'm just going to start every movie, no matter what topic we're doing. I'll just start saying Chaos X versus Sever as the answer. So
Well, hold
that's
on.
a future
Real
plan.
quick, real short story. We rarely miss a deadline. The other day, I was trying to get back. I had Scarefest. We're doing Lloyd Kaufman. I was drunk. I was, oh my God, trying to get, I don't even remember which segment it is. And I had 2 from you, Glenn, going, you got it done yet, mate? Mate. I'm trying.
The funny thing is, I think this is on the episode. You hadn't delivered it as we were recording, and it was
yeah,
like
you
right
thought it
as I came, because it's scripted. I came out of your segment, and I said, "Oh, just for those that want to see behind the curtain." As the Boneheads were talking, they just delivered that segment. Like,
Yeah. We were forever getting it. I can't remember. There were several different factors and something that stopped me because we didn't record it till like 48 hours beforehand. And there's something that stopped me from doing it the night before. Oh my God.
I appreciate it, mate. And as Ben will attest, on a Friday, I get very anxious, and everyone that contributes will know that the messages of mate.
I don't
mate.
I don't know why Joe's shocked by this, because if you watch our show, you'll know that I had COVID and had to keep muting my mic as I coughed up my lungs.
I watched that.
And Joe was still like, we got to record, man. We got to record. We got to make this happen. And I'm like, I can't breathe for long periods of time, but we'll do this. And if
We don't miss a
as you
gig.
said,
It's like, I'm getting-
you saw it. You saw me in a baseball cap. I kept my
Yep.
shades on because my eyes were all bloodshot. And if you would have been able to, if my camera was better, if I had HD, you would have saw sweat pouring off of me as I sat there and was like, I can't raise my hands too many times because they'll shake. So I'll just do this.
I just like that. I'm sure that at the time it would have been like that Simpsons bit with the subway with Joe sitting there and like Glenn, mate, and you there like next to Jeff floating around, mate. mate, mate, we got to do it.
But we don't miss a gig. We don't miss that. James can attest. He actually almost had to prop me up to do a presentation that we were getting paid for. Correct, James?
That's true. And this is true.
4 days later, where was I?
Hey, you were in the ICU. This is a true story, by the way. He walked in on his own power because we had a deadline. We had to be there. And then when we
And there
were,
was
I
a
don't know if
check
you remember
involved.
this. I don't know if you remember this, Joe. When we walked out, the car was parked in the exact same spot.
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
remember.
wait till he went in and move it. We had to stop twice.
I
And it
couldn't
wasn't
walk.
like I was parked in Lake Wobegon. We were parked really close. He had to stop twice, and he literally had to do the wait. And it was like a 5-minute break. So it took us about 20 minutes to get back to the car. But Joe, I will give Joe credit. Okay, yes, I had COVID, but you almost died, and we still
I
Ben
didn't.
does
propped
that.
I
Nelly-
propped myself
Yeah.
up on the podium. Remember?
You were
And
leaning
did
on
the
the
same
I stood to
shtick.
the side. Yep, no, you're
Nearly
absolutely
every
right.
single week, Ben does the whole wait, and then he comes and it's all good, and we keep going.
Yeah, well, see, that's the problem. Usually Joe already has it. It's just he needs to get it. Right.
I'm like Ron Jeremy. I can count backwards from 10 and just go. But I need to count back from 10.
And on that note, thank you all so much. Please subscribe to Bone.
What is our show again?
Oh, I said please subscribe. My computer froze up.
The battery ran
Sure
out.
it did.
That's what
really
you get
did.
for subscribing.
Ooh.
If you subscribe, we bone.
Subscribe to Good Movie Monday. Check them out. They're a fantastic show and good friends, and we appreciate it. This has been Bonehead Weekly.
Brrr.